Good morning, councillors. It's come on 9 o'clock, which is time to open up our meeting. Councillor Ruka, would you like to open us up again, since you did so well yesterday?
Thank you, Worship. Mino tate, uru ki te rā, wera ki te rā, ko te ataka hāpara, ko te ataka pākuru, ko te ataka tū, rere mai te ihihi, rere mai te wanawana, rere mai tamanui o roto, rere mai tamanui o waho, rere mai tamanui te rā. Tītea te kapo kia hihiri, tītea te whatu kia ārea, tītea te kiri kia mahana, mahana te areki o roto, mahana te areki o waho, whano, hara mai te mahana, haumie, huie, tai.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ruka. I think it's important to open our meetings, and thank you. Appreciate the time to do that. Councillors, I just need to acknowledge we're resuming from. We need to move to resume. No, we're resuming from yesterday's submissions, and today we have a couple of apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Jovich, Councillor Cooper, and I haven't had an apology yet from Councillor Golightly, but I believe that there might be one coming in. So at the moment we've got two official apologies, which is Councillor Cooper and Councillor Jovich. Councillor Reid and Councillor Peters will move in second. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. As I said before, this is about submissions, and what we usually do with setting our groundwork on our submissions to make it easy for everybody. We rest all our submitters' mind at ease that we actually have read the submissions. They are there in front of us, and a lot of times we will be referring to them as you are speaking, so please don't worry what we're actually writing or looking at. The big thing is you've got 5 minutes with each one of your submissions. We encourage you not to read your submission because we've already got it, but to highlight parts that you would like us to focus on. So the first one up is Jody. Jody's going to be doing the submission for the Whangarei District Council Youth Advisory Group. Now this is on volume 5, page 41. So now, Jody, what you've got is the right button on the microphone, and that turns it on. That's it.
Hello.
Excellent.
Can you all hear me? Perfect. Okay. Shall I start? Okay. So my name is Jody Ramaka, and I'm here to speak as the chairperson of the Whangarei District Council Youth Advisory Group. And with me, I also have one of our members here.
Kia ora, my name is Frankie.
And together, we decided to make a submission to the long-term plan on behalf of young people in the district. I believe you have read our written submission, so now we just speak to the main points that we want to get across. Firstly, we request that Council conducts a review on the policy which governs the leasing of Council-owned properties to community groups. We advocate for Council to allocate a set time period for community groups, for leases to community groups between 1 and 5 years. During this time, community groups can use Council-owned properties at a low rate or for free. And during this time, after that, they are required to contest for the space or move on, so the same opportunity is given to new community groups. Secondly, we ask Council to enhance existing civic spaces, such as libraries, to make them more inviting for youth. We request that the space renovated in the old municipal building be set aside for youth, as a space where young people can connect, study, work together, and improve their overall well-being. Lastly, we would like Council to consider funding a monthly newsletter for youth. An overwhelming number of young people in Whangarei say they don't know about opportunities and events in our region. By having the Council fund the Youth Advisory Group to create a newsletter highlighting opportunities for young people, we will create a more vibrant youth community that is proud to be from Whangarei. And yeah, Thanks for listening, and as your youth advisory group, we do invite you all to engage with us at any given opportunity outside of the submission, as we are always open to discuss and exchange ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodie. Well done. And as you can see, Jodie, within our counsellors here, we adopt the sign language approach for clapping, as the microphones will reverberate everywhere. Jodie, this allows the counsellors time to ask questions, and Councillor Harding's got a question for you.
Tēnā koe te koromatua. Kia ora tātou, ngā mihi nui anō, Councillor Rukamoto, haka moemiti kia mātou. Tēnā kaurua. Thank you so much. Thank you for presenting your submission. I like the idea about continued communications with our rangatahi, with our young people. The monthly newsletter, what kind of form do you think that, the young people are so techno these days, so what might that look like? Is it a piece of paper?
I see it more as a digital newsletter. Sorry.
Let's go.
Digital newsletter?
Councillor Peters would like to ask a question.
Thank you very much. Do you think that Youth Space or one of the other youth organisations might front that, possibly with some funding?
Possibly, but I do not have an answer for that myself right now.
Jodie, from my side of things, you've asked for a newsletter was one of the costs. Do you know what sort of costs you'll be looking at for a digital newsletter?
No, I don't.
Okay. Something to discuss later on.
Yes.
No other questions? No, there's no other questions. Thank you, Jodie, for taking your time coming in. Frankie, well done. Good support person. Our next submitter is Pamela Hodgson. She's speaking from Friends of Gomez. Her submission is on volume 6, page 79. And Pamela's got some supporters there too. And as before, Pamela, you heard what I said to Jodie. The right-hand button on the thing turns the microphone on. You've got 5 minutes. Again, try not to read your submission. Try to highlight things that you really want us to focus
on. Sorry. Your Worship, councillors, staff, or WDC staff members, good morning. My name is Pamela Hodgson. As you know, I'm a spokesperson for Friends of Gomez this morning. In our LTP 24-25 submission, we've asked for funding to be allocated for the development of a reserves management plan for the Gomez Reserve in Hikurangi. You may recall FOG's proposal, which we presented to you about a year ago, which outlined many of the reasons why the Gomez Reserve is so important and needing to be protected. Our work during this period of time has been ongoing. There have been some exciting developments, new discoveries, some of which we'll share with you this morning. One of the biggest problems, or I should say two of the biggest threats to the protection of the delicate ecosystem that exists within the reserve is cattle and people who go in there with their dirt bikes. They find ways in the fences. They don't need to get through the gate in order to do that. Even though FOG continues to carry out temporary fence repairs, closing gates which seem to be always open, our efforts are simply not enough. Kaipara Moana remediation people, who I'm sure you're probably familiar with, have become interested in our plight. They've done a lot of wonderful work with regards to remediation of the Kaipara waterways, and of course, as we all know, those waterways come all the way up to the Hikurangi area. So our values are aligned. For this reason, they've been very helpful, very supportive, and they're working with us to find ways to create a permanent solution to the fencing problem. Pest control is an ongoing job, which is carried out by FOG members, mainly Miriam here beside me. We have set up traps, and Miriam's in the process of mapping out and setting up more trap lines. She'll probably tell you more about that. Biosense expert Fred Helm became interested when he heard about the reserve and felt that there was a good reason to suspect that there may be the presence of bats. So he put in listening devices, and over a period of time, recordings have confirmed that there are indeed bats, which are called picker, long-tailed bats, which are an endangered species. How excited you can imagine we were to find out the presence of these wonderful things. Another reason, again, for us to really take a firm stand on the protection of this area. Because of all the things that I've just mentioned, actually I forgot to mention about Forest and Bird, which is terrible because they are our biggest advocate. Forest and Bird have come into the reserve. They have noted that there are many important species of, is that my 5 minutes? Oh, I thought you, many important species to be found in the reserve. And they actually commissioned Marley Ford, who was an ecologist, to do a report, an up-to-date report on the area. So in his report, Marley has outlined the significance, the ecological significance of this area. And he's also identified 196 different plants, native plant species, 16 of which are threatened. So we're very, very pleased to have access to that report, which was done by Forest and Bird. Our focus, because of all these new findings, has changed. FOG's focus has changed. We are no longer pursuing the walking tracks as per our proposal. Now, we believe, I have to read these out, after communication with Forest and Bird, NRC, Heritage New Zealand, WDC staff and many others, we now believe that a reserves management plan is vital for the protection of Gomez Reserve. Now, money, we acknowledge that finances are tight. However, in this case, because we know that there are people who do not have the same values as we do with regard to the protection of this taonga motu that we do, and are intent on using it to serve their own purposes, thereby endangering the ecological system within. We really plead with you to allocate some funding towards the reserves management plan, the development of a reserves management plan. FOG members would love to be involved in that. We will give you 100% effort towards implementing whatever needs to be done towards it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you for making a presentation there. Probably the first question that I'm just going to ask, because I don't see it in your submission and you haven't itemized it out, is what do you know what the cost for the fund to do the reserve management plan will be? Because you've asked for a fund to do it, so do you know what sort of money you're looking at?
At this point, we know so very little about the reserve management plan itself. After talking with the people that I mentioned, Forest and Bird, NRC, etc., WC staff members, we've come to recognise that this is perhaps the way to go about protecting it. As far as funding is concerned, that's something we would have to work out with WD staff.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's also, you mentioned kaipara remediation, moana remediation. I believe there's a proposal on the table for fencing the areas that aren't well fenced. Do you have any idea of what contribution they would make and what contribution you'd be asking from Whangarei District Council for that particular component?
At the moment, they are talking, I mean, nothing's set in stone, but they're prepared to do 50% of the cost of fencing, which we believe is very generous. And then we would have to find the rest of the funding, hopefully from council, if not from the adjoining farmer.
And you'd be looking for that as council, as the landowner of the reserve, presumably?
Well, yes, but we understand that the council is not necessarily, going to foot the bill for that, but we're certainly looking for funding towards that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pamela. Thank you for coming in. There's no more questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Peters.
Are you? Thank you very much for your presentation. Are you able to apply also for philanthropic funding?
Do we know the answer to that? Sorry,
For like funding from places like lottery?
I think what Councillor Peters is trying to ask is, are you a charitable trust so you can apply for funding? Is that what you're asking, Councillor Peters? Yep.
No, we're not.
Microphone, sorry. Just press the button again.
Oh. I'll just press it.
Yeah.
No, we don't, but we do have people like Forest and Bird who can apply on our behalf and are willing to do so.
Councillor Harding.
Sorry, just a late one. Kia ora koutou. Thank you for coming in this morning. Mihi ana ki a koe. Miriam. I just wondered whether you were aware of ngā kaitiaki o ngā wai Māori, which is a collective of hapu that kind of are working within that Hukarangi catchment area. They're doing a lot of work, obviously, with the tuna and monitoring, water monitoring, and they're just another ally to have on board in terms of looking after the wai Māori and also the ngahere. But if you don't, I'm happy to provide some links with you. Yeah, good allies on the mahi that you're already doing. Congratulate you for looking after our tonga species. Kia ora.
Councillor, I just
Thank
need to...
you, Councillor Harding.
Before you answer, Pamela, I know, Councillor, you need to make sure your questions are questions. You can't include statements in there. So these are questions to clarify. So, Pamela...
The question is, do you know of ngā kaitiaki o ngā wai Māori?
And I was about to say, no, we are unaware, but we will definitely contact you and get some details. Thank you.
Ka pai, thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you for coming in. Well done. And we look forward to seeing more of the submissions later on. Our next submitter is Miriam. So you're going to stay there and do that one? I wondered that. So Miriam, you've got the 5 minutes as well. So again, the councillors have seen your submissions, volume 6, page 43, and go for it.
Thank you. I'm also a member of FOG, but I made an individual submission. I've lived on Gomez Road for 2 months, shy of 20 years, and I work in conservation ecology. Pamela's said a lot of what I was going to say, but basically I want the support of council to protect the Gomez Reserve. It's a really special place. Over the years of living there, I've noticed species that are unusual and notable. Then other members of the community tell me about stuff they've seen and found. And then it all came to fruition when we alerted Forest and Bird to the area, and they commissioned their independent ecological survey, which was quite intense. It was 3 days. Their ecologist stayed in the reserve overnight, so he looked at the night biota and did this amazing report, found all kinds of things we were completely unaware of, and identified it as really special, nationally endangered gumlins habitat. And that's why all these special things live there, because it's a special environment. So the three threats, as Pamela has already said: possums, wandering stock, and dirt bikes. We're actively trapping. We've already found funding and got traps for pest control. We've also got the go-ahead, as long as we get all the right consents in place. But we have obtained permission for a poison operation in the heart of the reserve to clean out the majority of the possum numbers, which we will then hopefully sustain with trapping, and then potentially more poison in the future if necessary. We're committed to that as a community group. I'm committed to that as an individual. We have, as a community group and individually, we have looked at the fences. We have closed open gates. We've picked up fences that have been trampled into the ground. We've made temporary changes, and we've harassed the landowners to fix their fences. And now, as Pamela said, we've got the Kaipara Moana remediation team really interested in helping us substantially. The other threat is the proposal to run a dirt bike track through there, which the Hikurangi Business Association are wanting to do. And we, again, as a community group, have found an alternative track which they have confirmed is acceptable, but they are still persisting in wanting to do earthworks to put a track through the reserve, and where they want to go is the most critical gumlands habitat, where most of the really rare things have been identified. So what I want as an individual, what I would like to ask for is protection of that reserve in perpetuity, with a management plan so that what can and can't be done in there is strongly stipulated, so there are no more threats, no more activities proposed that will jeopardise the integrity of that environment. I personally would be very happy to assist in writing a plan if that is appropriate. I have the ecological skills, I believe, to at least, with consultation with others, so that's an offer. I have no idea how much it costs to write a plan for council, as council, but that's there. But yeah, please help us to protect this area. That's all I ask.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for your presentation. Any questions for Miriam? No? Very concise. Well done. Thank you very much, Miriam. Appreciate your time. Pamela, well done. And we'll see you guys out and about. I think you can stay here if you want to listen to the rest of the submissions. It's up to you guys. Our next submitter is Pete Peters. Pete's not a stranger to the chambers. No, it's actually Tim Robinson. My apologies. I jumped ahead. I saw Pete there. I saw Tim. Okay, so Tim's actually taking charge. Tim's submission's on volume 6, page 49.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you lovely folk today. Appreciate the time. I'm actually going to focus on there's three things that I want to talk to out of my submission. The first one is around becoming a Northland Inc. shareholder. As I've noted there, from our personal perspective and also from wearing my hat from the Chamber of Commerce, is that we believe that it is mission critical that we have an economic development agency. It's something that we do need, and I think it's really important that WDC becomes a shareholder in that. More than anything else, to be able to, to sort of provide some governance input into the direction of the organisation. I guess one of the things that we sort of sense is that Northland Link for a long time has been a bit confused about what it actually should be doing. Economic development is not business development, but they seem to spend an awful lot of time and an awful lot of money trying to do business development. The business community would rather that organisations that are business driven, actually do the business development piece. And my sort of, I guess, my plea is that I think that you guys have the opportunity to introduce some step change there, which I think is long overdue. The next one I want to focus on is around from community facilities and community and services comments. I've put a note in there about putting a plea out for council to, I guess, to have some dedicated funding for iconic events. One of the things that I'm getting, I guess, disappointed in is that there seems to be a belief within inside council that events, particularly, and I'm speaking here specifically about our Northern Fashion Awards event, is that these are somehow commercially successful and sustainable events. They're not. Okay, we cannot make money from these events, and they do require funding. And a large part of that is because of the fact that it's the compliance costs that have been, I guess, have been imposed on events in the last sort of 5 to 7 years. The average cost of an event has actually escalated about 300%. So that just gives you a bit of an idea of the quantum we're talking about. So I guess our choices are that we can have a city that nothing happens in, or we actually have to say that the council needs to step up and have a dedicated fund to support. I'm quite open to the fact that the events probably do need to go through a competitive process. You do need to pick winners. And I'm quite okay with that, because at the end of the day, if the event that I'm involved with is not considered to be a winner, I'm okay with that. But what I want is, I want a city that actually has some vibrancy, and the events that happen here need to actually represent that. Just by way of explanation, Art and Tartan is again not happening this year. Dargaville Wearable Events is not happening. We saw in the news last night, New Zealand Fashion Week is not happening. All of these things, which are very much around the emotional and mental well-being of our community, are all being, I guess, cut purely because of the fact that there is no money available. So it is a myth to say that there is funding available out there. We know, we've tried. Funding organisations are cutting back significantly in what they're handing out, largely because their own incomes are dropping dramatically, and they have been significantly drained through COVID. The last one that I want to focus on is in regards to support services, is around the support for City Safe. Now, I'm talking here specifically as a business owner in regards to the importance of this. We have noticed that since funding was secured and the capability of City Safe was increased, there has been a big temperature drop in the trouble in the CBD. That is purely as a result of an increased presence of people on the ground. Okay, the evidence is clear and empirical. Having people on the ground works. Now, we're not here to litigate the fact that this is primarily the responsibility of police, because we all know it is the responsibility of police. That is not going to happen. And again, I circle back to what kind of city do we want? Do we want a city that is vibrant, that people are happy to come in, happy to come and spend money into the CBD? Or do we want people nervous, afraid, and just not going to come in? Because that's what the situation we were in about 12 to 14 months ago. The simple fact is that the work that City Safe have done and the way they go about it has been transformational. We need to maintain that. What I'm asking for is that we all know, again, the cost for those kind of organisations continues to grow through wage inflation and things like that. We do need to be increasing support for them, not decreasing it. Now, appreciating again that there is a cost associated with that, but my challenge is more around saying the cost of not doing it is incrementally a lot higher. When you look at the number of shops that are already closing now, just purely through economic reasons, we cannot allow to increase that economic pressure by people not feeling safe to come to town. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for the presentation. Tim, I just have a question for you. You mentioned about events. For these major events, do you have an idea of what sort of funding is required?
So in the instance of our event, to be successful, the event's got a budget of about 150K, of which we need funding of about 60. Now, we're not suggesting all of that comes from council, of course, but we do need council to be a contributor towards that.
So to continue on that vein, if there's more events to happen, how many events are you sort of major events are you wanting for the city or the district?
I don't have a particular opinion about that. I mean, I think a lot of that's probably going to be driven by, again, what does the community actually want? Because the community will obviously support and I guess, call for things that they believe are worth having.
Okay. Councillor Peters has got a question for you.
Thank you. I'm aware that sports events bring a lot of business to the community, and the event that you're talking about and ones like them, I consider arts events.
Correct.
Would you say that arts events bring support to business as in a same vein as sports events, or do you think that we should be funding sports events more?
Okay, really good question. Thanks, Councillor Peters. Look, my humble opinion is that arts events don't bring the same kind of business benefit, and the reason for that is simply because most arts events people aren't coming to stay for. They're just simply they're primarily for local residents. Sports events, of course, people are coming to town, so they need accommodation, they need to eat. And of course they bring supporters who then will go around and do some shopping. So yeah, hand on heart, I don't believe arts events of which, and you're quite right. That's the Northern Fashion Awards is definitely an arts event. There's also a second strand of that too with arts events. A lot of those are actually very much there's a secondary outcome as opposed to just the event itself. A lot of these events, and the Fashion Awards is a good example, is this is actually about developing artist talent, and in particular with the Fashion Awards, it's actually allowing youth to be able to start their creative journey to the point of where they can actually pursue a career, earn an income, or form a business. So a lot of, I guess, almost sort of like complementary activity that happens and positive outcome that happens from it, but you can't tangibly sort of say that was a direct economic benefit of the event.
Any other questions for Tim? No, Tim, well done. You're all good there. You can have a seat, or it's all no worries. Thanks again, Tim. Next speaker. Now I've got Pete Peters. Pete's submission is on volume 17, page 91. Pete, you've seen the way we're doing things. 5 minutes question, and then we have questions afterwards. We'll try and get you to cover off things which you haven't covered off on your submission, or you want to highlight specifically. Not a problem. Go for it.
Understand. Thank you. First of all, I did put a little bit of submission on the camping and freedom camping and that, but I think my main talk I want to talk about today is the CCTO. I'm a commercial property agent, as most of you will know, and I have been for 28 years. I own commercial property myself, and I look at what the job of a council is. The job of a council is to run a district for the community. It's to run roads, footpaths, parks, and water and sewerage and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying council shouldn't own commercial property, but council's not got the skills to actually manage commercial property. And my personal opinion, because I've watched over 28 years of some of the horrific things that I've seen happen, or what I believe have been horrific and should never have happened in a commercial property market. So I think that a separate company to control the commercial property for council is a very sound thing to do. Commercial property makes money, and it makes a lot of money. That's why there's a lot of people in New Zealand own commercial property. When I read the pre-document of this, it says to run the commercial property arm, to form a commercial property arm will cost $1.34 million over 2 years. I got a bit of a shock. There's no way in the world that sort of money should be put into running a commercial property. Commercial property is self-funding, always has been self-funding and always will be self-funding. University degrees are great for certain things, and it can give people a lot of knowledge, but you need people on the ground who actually have experience at doing this. Not a university degree, but actually can do the mahi with the noodle up here that takes to do that sort of work. And that's not gained from a university. That's gained from experience in the field. My thoughts on that. The second thing, commercial property is very profitable, and I own commercial property myself, as I've said. Even with the exorbitant rate charge or loading that you have on commercial property, throughout New Zealand, Christchurch was cried out as having a high loading at 3 times the residential rate. Whangarei is 7 times the residential rate, and I don't know why. It's being loaded onto a very small group of people to pay a very large portion of the rates. The farming community, I believe, is paying 0.98% of a rating base, and commercial property 7 times. Farms are businesses too. I'm not against farms, and I've grown up in my family of farmers, and I'm not against them. I just think it's very unfair to load the load that you're putting on to the businesses in through the rating system within the town. The outcome of it is, though, it doesn't actually cost those businesses in the end, because the general public pay it because it's put onto their services, but it should just be loaded fairer. So that's about really what I wanted to talk about, was just getting a commercial property arm established. It should not cost the council money. It should be self-funding. It will be if you have the right people running it, and it should be. Far North District Council is a classic example. We have Far North District Council on our books. Any big investment we bring up in this city, Far North Council look at, and they have the money to do it. They actually buy property, trade property, and that they run it from a trading arm. Nothing to do with council decisions itself. It should have council involvement, and it probably needs a couple of councillor or 1 or 2 councillors in there, or council staff. But again, if they're in there, they shouldn't. They should be working on their salary they earn from council as a representative, not a separate salary for being on a board or something like that. 1.34 million just seems absolute nonsense to me. A waste of money. That's all I got to say.
No, I appreciate that, Pete. Probably just a clarifying question, and it brought up with what you're saying there. Do you believe that when you've got a CCTO, that you should be paying directors?
CCTO, there should be some sort of remuneration probably for the directors who run it if they put a lot of time into it. But if they're salaried through the organisation that owns it, they shouldn't be additionally funded again for doing it. It should be, if they're doing it in normal business hours and they've got a job in that place, they shouldn't be receiving a second salary for it. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's about commercial property is about watching your spending, being careful of where you put it, and making wise decisions.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Pete? No other questions. Well done, Pete.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time coming in.
Thank you.
Our next submitter is James Coleman. James is from the Northern Regional Football. His submission is on volume 5, page 18. James, you'll need to press the right. That's it.
There we go. Kia ora koutou katoa. James Coleman. I'm the area manager for the Far North for Northern Region Football, and also the team lead for the Northern Region. I'm here in support of the submission to the LTP by Northern Region Football. Firstly, something that probably doesn't happen very often, but I'll do it anyway, and it's a thank you to all of you. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the significant work that is currently being undertaken around the Whangarei region to improve facilities. The current work at Onarahi FC, proposed works at Tikiponga, proposed works at Morningside Park, work at Bream Bay, for which we are extremely grateful for, and I thank you. Unfortunately, it's not enough. Tikiponga FC is a case in point. It is one of our biggest venues in the Northland region. It is severely oversubscribed, overutilised, and is desperate for new facilities, and in particular, at least a new field up there, a new pitch, to at least alleviate a little bit of the pressure that is on the ground up there at the moment. Football has seen a growth of 29% in registrations from 2019 to 2023. On the back of the hugely successful FIFA Women's World Cup, girls and women's growth up 17% in the same period. Just taking into account the 2024 season, which is currently about to kick off, girls-only teams in the Whangarei region have grown from just 3 teams to tomorrow we have 10 teams kicking off. If I'm to briefly just go outside the area, we've had a 50% growth in junior football in the Far North, and in the Kaipara region we've had a 73% growth over the last 12 months. So it's not just a Whangarei problem, it is a Northland-wide problem. We simply do not have room to accommodate the players. And given the impact circumstances have had over the past 3 years in terms of COVID and the current cost of living crisis, the strain on the mental health of so many of our rangatahi and whānau is significant. Sport is proven to be one of the major outlets and release to mental health issues which are increasing around Northland. And yet we have spaces, as an example, Kensington Park, that has restrictions on sports use and adult sports activities such as senior football. Immediately there you have an underutilised space that would, if allowed, alleviate significant pressure on other overused facilities. As identified in Northern Region Football's Whangarei Facilities Plan, football does not have enough quality floodlit spaces to operate. Our season kicks off tomorrow, and so far it's taken us 3 days this week to schedule all the required games into the space that we have. That's over 35 senior and youth games, plus over 70 junior teams in 3 different venues playing at festivals tomorrow. This becomes even more challenging as the season progresses and we get into the depths of winter. Given this detail, we do support the proposal that a piece of land be invested in for sports facilities, and whilst the primary focus for this would be on indoor venues, we would ask that football and futsal be considered in the planning and development. With this also in mind, and of great concern, is the proposal to abolish the targeted rate, which I know is a NRC initiative. But this assists in the funding of such projects as sports facilities and the rescue helicopter. The targeted rate is one of the few dollars that has visual impact and has a tangible effect on communities. In the past, the targeted rate has invested heavily in projects such as soon-to-be opened Te Hiku Sports Hub up in Kaitaia, Sportsville in Dargaville, Linbart Park, Kaikohe, the contributions to development at Tikipunga Sports Park, and is in line to assist with the multi-million-dollar project Te Pua Waitanga Sports Hub up in Kirikiri. To look to be purchasing land to create further facilities on the one hand, and then consider cutting off one of the pathways for funding that would assist in the development of the land, simply doesn't really make sense. And I would urge Council and NRC to strongly reconsider that proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, James. Any questions from the councillors? No questions. James, I just have one question, which you haven't really covered in your submission. I'm just, from the Northland Regional Football type model, do you believe in centralisation of areas, or do you believe in having the fields spread all over the district?
I think fields spread all over the district in terms of obviously those individual clubs, but I believe also that each area benefits from having a significant sports hub for larger events. I mean, as I did hear in a submission previously about the revenue that sports events can bring into the regions, if we are able to hold significant sports events at a sports hub such as Tikipunga FC, which is the primary sports park here, Te Pua Waitanga, which is being developed up in the Bay of Islands, that will bring additional revenue into the area. I believe that whilst the clubs also need their individuality in terms of smaller facilities, to create a one regional sports hub that can hold these major events, I think is paramount to the long-term sustainability and enables us to hold larger football events. A case in point might be the Amy Lindsay Festival that we hold at the end of each junior season, which brings over 100 junior teams together to finish the season. Tikipunga is our largest venue, and even that at this stage is not big enough to hold that. And given the numbers that we've got, it's only going to increase.
James, you've got a question here from Councillor Harding.
Thank you. E te koromata. Kia ora, James. Thank you very much. Has your organisation, when you're looking at the purchase of land for the development of a sports hub, Has your organisation been thinking about where that area might be positioned?
That was something that I was under the impression was being investigated by council in terms of land being identified. We haven't specifically done that work, no. But we did the identification of, or contributed to identification of land up in the far north, in Kerikeri, but nothing in this region, no.
Right, no other questions, James. Well done. Thank you very much for your submission. Taking your time there. Well done. You can have a seat, or our next person for submissions is Linda Gardner-Lee. Her submission is on volume 2, page 94. Linda, as you've seen, 5 minutes. It's all yours. Allow the councillors to ask questions at the end, if there is any. Go for it.
Right, good morning, Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. This is my first verbal submission on the LTP. I speak for myself only and will talk generally about issues covered in my submission. So, kia ora, I'm Linda Gardner-Lee. I've lived in Rua Tongata since 2004, when together with my husband and 2 children, we moved here to Whangarei from Auckland. We moved here for the lifestyle and not for shopping malls. My family has strong connections to Northland, with my father having attended Hora School and several of his siblings having properties in Hikurangi and Maurewa. Childhood summers spent with the cousins at our batches at Whananaki South lead me to believe that I grew up in one of the most blessed time in modern history. It is my belief that the residents and ratepayers who vote in the local body elections do so because they have faith in the democratic process and in the council to manage the local body affairs, trusting them to carry out their duties and functions along the lines of the declaration they swore when becoming a councillor. I acknowledge you have a very tough job. Only 43.3% of eligible voters voted in the 2022 election in Whangarei. The common 2 reasons why people don't vote, in my experience, are either they don't believe their vote matters, i.e. council will just do what they want anyway, or they are time poor and there is too much information to try to sift through to attempt to inform themselves. Council's engagement and consultation processes appear, in most instances, to be foregone conclusions, with the consultation process comprising a tick box exercise lacking transparency and integrity. By way of example, the land for the airport had been covertly purchased at prices well above market, with no notification or public consultation. Council has powers of eminent domain, so this was completely unnecessary. Oruku Landing, Huntertwasa, the stadium, Te Iwitahi, all caused controversy, but were advanced with similar messaging from council. It isn't going to cost ratepayers anything, or it will save money in the long term. Next minute. Incorporating the cost of membership to Northland Link into the proposed rates increases seems like another foregone conclusion. Other examples are only allowing 5 minutes for oral feedback, and community workshops are another. With the high rates increases over the last few years, increasing numbers of residents and ratepayers are paying closer attention to your actions and will increasingly challenge your decisions, as is happening throughout New Zealand. If council continue to engage in activities beyond their core scope and community needs, then you will be passing unaffordable, unsustainable rates increases onto the people you have undertaken to serve. Council is forcing ratepayers, under statute, to pay excessive or exorbitant charges that they have very little say in, cannot afford, with the threat that if they don't pay, the council will sell their properties. Sounds suspiciously like extortion to me. There are currently questions in the public domain concerning council's jurisdiction, and the council will face increasing scrutiny until this is clarified. Clearly, the model is not working in transparency and harmony with the community it serves. It would be natural for councillors to feel threatened by this increased scrutiny and engagement in council affairs, just as ratepayers feel threatened when they cannot afford rates increases but feel they have no choice otherwise. Some of you may call me crazy for some of my beliefs. However, in history, many people have been described as crazy, their reputations discredited, some even losing their lives for expressing their beliefs, only later to be proven 100% correct. Name calling based on confirmation bias only causes division and is a form of bullying. Thankfully, the Bill of Rights Act 1990 provides for many unalienable rights, including freedom of expression. I do not want anyone, either elected or employed, to be making decisions on matters which seek to undermine my and others' freedom to choose what is best for us. Concerns of rising financial hardship are being seen in the number of withdrawals from KiwiSaver, with a 90% increase in these withdrawals over the past year. These withdrawals indicate people are in financial trouble and are finding it tough to put food on the table, forcing them to tap into what should be their retirement savings. I'll finish with one of my favourite quotes. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, for your presentation. Councillors, is there any questions for Linda? No, your presentation looks like it was very concise and well done. Thank you for submitting. Thank you for taking the time to come in. And our next submitter is James Hines. James is talking on behalf of Tikipanga Association Football Club. His submission is on volume 3, page 95. And there's a handout as well that's coming out.
Thank you for allowing me a chance to speak. My name is James Hines. I'm the president of Tikipanga Football Club. Really following on from what James Coleman spoke about the facilities up here. As you know, we're about to start a new build up there on the football hub, and which is great. And council has contributed a lot to that. We thank you all for that. One thing I really want to mention is a new pitch for us up there. We were going to build a pitch up there. Sorry, can you hear me all right now? Sorry. Yeah, that's better. Okay. There was a new pitch to be built. As you'll see, I've put on one of the handouts there. There's a picture of the present pitches, and there's a training pitch and proposed number 1 pitch, which we're looking for an all-weather pitch. Originally it was going to be a sand-based pitch, but the cost overruns prevented that from happening. And also I have the other handout is basically the usage of the pitches at Tikipanga. And as you'll see, we're actually at the top end of those. I've got the hours, weekly hours on the right hand side, and just saying how much they're used. And Northern FC also uses the pitches, and I've also put at the top what the pitches are used for, and basically throughout the year. And James also mentioned the Amy Lindsay Cup, which I didn't put on there. We're short of pitches, as council's probably well aware, with the new build out at Onarahi, Bream Bay, is going to help, but I'm just here to say we need more, please. Yeah.
Look, appreciate the submission, James.
Yeah.
Probably the question from me is, do you know what sort of cost one of these sand-based fields? You haven't included.
The sand-based field that I believe the quote got up to $1.3 million. Ooh. I believe it was budgeted 860,000 maybe. And so looking forward, instead of building a sand-based pitch for that, do we move to a all-weather pitch, a turf pitch, if you like, similar to the hockey ones, which can be used for 60 hours a week rather than a maximum of 25 hours a week. That's what I'm submitting now. Be more useful moving forward in the future. The cost is quite substantially more for a all-weather pitch, but it can be used all year round.
And just like with hockey usually gets loans and pays it back. Is that something that you're interested in?
Well, we look at all options, of course. Okay. I haven't priced it out, but I have mentioned, someone mentioned to me the price of an all-weather pitch is $2 million. Cool. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And any other questions for James? Well done, James.
Sorry, I was just a little bit nervous first time up.
No. You did well. Take your time. You did very, very well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers. Our next submitter is Matt Keane. Matt's submissions on volume 3, page 123. Matt's no stranger to submissions, so you know the process. 5 minutes. You don't have to read your submission out, as you know, we've got it in front of us.
Yep.
So, you know, if you've got something that I particularly wanted to highlight on, that's the time.
All clear, thank you. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, ko Matt King tōko ingoa. I wanted to begin by acknowledging the importance of community facilities in our district and how they create strong communities through connection and social cohesion. I also want to, on behalf of 116 Trust, thank the WDC for the support of the Trust, which receives an annual rent concession to operate out of the building at 116 Bank Street. In the past 2 years, we've had over 40,000 unique visits, and this year's Whangarei Fringe Festival will again be based at 116 and could not happen without it. I'm submitting today about an alternative to the proposed lyric theatre flagged in the next long-term plan. I remember the polarisation caused in our community around the Hundertwasser Arts Centre project, and I hope that we don't see that again in our city in the lead up to the decision about the next piece of major arts infrastructure. Having helped to found and then operate 116 Trust for the last 9 years, I have seen how important engagement in the performing arts is to our community. This includes the engagement for our diverse audiences who want to see contemporary, accessible New Zealand theatre, music and dance, as well as to the emerging and established artists in our community who tell stories through performance that help us to understand and relate to those with different lives and circumstances from our own. The performing arts play a vital role in fostering a sense of unity, creativity and whole order within our community, providing a platform for self-expression, cultural understanding and empathy. The construction of a smaller black box theatre with fully configurable seating surrounded by a range of smaller multi-purpose spaces would have a number of advantages over a traditional lyric theatre. An example of a black box theatre is the new Court Theatre complex being built in Christchurch's CBD in partnership with the Christchurch City Council and the Court Theatre. Another similar example is Auckland's Q Theatre Rangatira space on Queen Street, which seats up to 470 people in a variety of seating configurations. Any new community performing arts infrastructure must be inclusive and accessible, and it is vital that economic barriers are minimised for both audiences and artists. A smaller, simpler black box theatre will cost less to build and will have lower annual operational costs. These savings could be applied to audience development, artistic programming, and subsidising use of the space for artistic development. Whatever the final decision is on the new theatre, audience development and programming will be critical to its success. In order to make new work, artists need physical spaces to collaborate and rehearse in. There is a clear need for more artistic space. We see this at 116, where the venue is often in use 7 days a week and is booked out for performances until the end of this year. A black box theatre with a number of small, economical, multi-purpose spaces will provide local artists with the opportunity to devise and manifest creative projects. This will result in more local work being made, and it will enhance career pathways for performers, writers and directors, as well as up-and-coming technicians and producers. The simplicity and flexibility of a black box theatre will mean much lower performance production costs, allowing the theatre's programming to reflect the creative interests and needs of local artists, making it easier for their work to emerge and be seen by our community. Lower production costs will also mean lower ticket prices and therefore increased accessibility for our community. Broader, diverse programming will encourage out-of-town contemporary performing arts companies to tour here. Diversity of programming will lead to wider community engagement and more frequent use of the new theatre. By contrast, the pressure to fill a large theatre and generate revenue will lead to the programming of mainstream conventional productions and would likely discourage creatively risky, challenging contemporary performances. The investment in a proposed new theatre is an opportunity to identify ourselves as a city that prioritises accessibility for all our community to a diverse range of performing arts and that supports its local artists to create challenging, relevant and innovative work. I hope that you will consider as a council a theatre that will enable those things to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And there's some councillors showing some support there. Councillor Mackenzie's got a question for you.
Morning, Matt. Thanks for coming in. One of the things that the Forum North Trust have been asking for well, there are a few things in relation to the specification of the theatre, one being 800 seats so that they can hold particular types of plays and so on, and then there's the fly tower. Do you see anything, any sort of middle ground between a black box theatre model and what the lyric theatre could propose, or are they really diametrically opposed?
They are diametrically opposed. I mean, a lyric theatre, you've got a static configuration, so you've got a raked block, and that's all you can do with it. You know, I've been to plenty of performances at Auckland's ATC Theatre, which is a 650-seat lyric theatre, and when that space is half full, the performance dies. It's flat. So you need a full house to make a performance work. 800 seats is a huge ask, I think, for any theatre, let alone one in our community, and it's going to dictate the type of performance that we get. It's also going to be dark, and dark by meaning there'll be no activity in it for, you know, many, many days during the year, because you just cannot get the productions that will work in a theatre like that. So, you know, black boxes, you can use it for anything. It can be an empty space. You know, you could have a conference in there. You can have seats in the round, which is performance space in the middle, end on, side on. It's just that the options are basically endless.
Any thoughts around the Kotahitanga exhibition hall and whether that could be repurposed?
No, I don't think so, and I think that space is you know, is really useful on its own. You know, I've been to so many exhibitions there. You know, the multicultural whangarei, you know, the days there that they have. It's a really vital space, but the acoustics in there would never be acceptable for a quality production.
Thank you.
No other questions for Matt? Well done, Matt. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for your time. Kia ora.
Our next submitter is Jan Francis. Jan's submission is on volume 2, page 85. Jan, the on button is the right button on that microphone there.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, nā minu kia koutou mō o mahi ki whangarei, ko Jan Francis Takaringa, kei Waipuaho e noho ana. So I thank you for the work that you do. I know it's not easy, and I'm very happy to be here in this lovely new council chamber for you to work in. I hope it, I was going to say improve, but maybe makes your decision making easier somewhat. And although I wasn't going to say this, I do fully support the previous speaker. I thought he was very, made some excellent points. I want to talk about primarily about the Saikaway in Waipu, and but I also have a comment on rates. The Saikaway in Waipu has been being built for. I arrived in Waipu 17 years ago. I didn't know anybody, and I found it a very welcoming and a very generous community. However, we have raised considerable amounts of money for this Saikaway over the years. I have been part of the group that has we've raised lots of money, but it is peanuts compared with the final costs and how much a council could help us. We are very grateful for the maintenance that the council provides. However, the maintenance is not flash really. It's in fact, as the Saikaway at the moment and the walkway is not in good condition at all. However, I do really I implore you to actually help us finish it. It's only 2K. It isn't what we wanted. We do have to cross the main road, and we're very sad about that. And we're very worried about the safety of our young people. But whatever, it needs to be finished. It's only 10K the whole way, and 15 or so years later, we still haven't completed it. And the young people who first put that up, when I first came and submitted on this, they were at high school. Well, now they probably have got families of their own. I don't know, but I know that I know that money is tight. I know it's difficult for you to find it, but in actual fact, it's not a lot compared with some of the other projects that you're grappling with. And I support the Trust's submission that was yesterday to honour the commitment you made to finish to do the very tricky bend. But I am also saying you should help us finish the whole thing and get it done. I know that some of you may find it hard to believe, but I am at the pointy end of my life, and I would like to be able to, with all the fundraising I've done, I would like to be able to see it finished. So please think carefully about how you can help finish that cycleway. I don't know the full costs of it, but I do know, sadly, that had we been doing this a few years ago, the farmers, the contractors would have easily finished that. They would not have paid hundreds of thousands for a bridge. They would have made the whole thing in 6 months, probably, Phil. But anyway, we're not in that situation. So I just ask you to look where it is possible and to work with the Trust, who I think have been possibly too patient in their advocacy of this. As to rates, I will struggle to pay 17%, but I also understand why you need 17%. My point, though, I want to get across is that you could charge us 50% and it still wouldn't be enough. I really want you to advocate for another way to fund councils. It is ridiculous that we should expect rates to fund the infrastructure deficits, the huge costs that we are facing. And I want you to put aside ideology, put aside political affiliations, work with other councils in Aotearoa and work together to find some smart solutions to the funding crisis that is throughout the whole country. And I think if you consult as well, or not consult, I hate that word, if you actually discuss with residents, you'll find that there are some really creative people around our community, and they'll come up with some solutions that perhaps nobody's thought of. However, I do think I don't know what you can do, but maybe even a public forum around what can we do, how can we, because it's no use putting one burden from one. It has to be together. You can't say, oh, let's have the private sector, let's have the community sector. You know, it just doesn't work. It just goes from one to the other. And putting it all on ratepayers is totally unsustainable in my view. So I encourage you to take up the cudgels on our behalf and advocate very strongly for a different outcome. I'll finish by mā whero mā pāngau, ka ora ai te iwi. If we all work together, we will have a much better community and we will all benefit. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Jan. It was a very good submission. You very much covered what you've highlighted in there. Is there any questions from the councillors? No questions. Jan, that means you've covered it very well. Thank you very much. Our next person is Colin Dahl and Councillor John Blackwell, who both are very used to the submission-making process. Guys, you've got 5 minutes. Your submission's on volume 2, page 85.
Right, thank you, Your Worship and councillors. Yeah, I'm John Blackwell. I'm a councillor on Northern Regional Council.
My apologies, I got it wrong. Volume 16, page 3. I was looking at the wrong thing then. Hadn't popped it up yet. Anyway, you're good. Go for it.
Go for it. Thank you. So we've only got 5 minutes on the submission. I take it that you all have read it. I can't ask a question, can I've picked out two things, and Colin's going to talk the rest. So one of my pet subjects is probably pest management. As most of you know, I'm a farmer, and I am concerned about your roadside growth of tobacco weed, gorse, blackberry. Privet is one of the worst ones. I think you've got to get on top of that, as it's really going to inherit the next generation this big problem. I've had truckies come into my place, upset with new trucks being scratched down the side. The other one is roading. So I'm on the regional roading committee with Councillor Reid and Phil House. And one of the things I'd speculate here on drainage is that we support option 2. Without good drainage, you can't have good roads. And we can see this happening in a lot of the region where drainage has been let go with our roads, and the cost to maintain and bring them up to standard is huge. Thank you, Colin.
Kia ora koutou, Mayor, Councillors and Simon. I'll be very quick to the point. I'll take the submission as read. Really the key theme of the Regional Council, and it fully appreciates, like all councils in the country, it's a tough call at the moment in balancing budgets and our rate increases and still providing good levels of service to the community. Paramount to that, from a regional council perspective, is the provision of good quality, well-maintained and compliant free waters infrastructure and systems, and work that improves their community resilience to issues like, or natural events like droughts and floods. So really, in making the decisions on your budgets, we consider those are the top priorities, and really should not be reduced. And we, as indicated in our submission, fully support the proposed options for more rather than less or status quo work in those services.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, John. My question I have here, you've, in the three things that we've asked about, you've left off commercial properties. Is there a reason why you left off the view of what your council's view was about commercial properties?
I think it was more just focusing on the really, key points rather than going into too much detail and specifics.
Okay. Any other questions from the councillors? No? Well done, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate yours.
Go back to doing the hard work again.
Thank you.
Our next submitter is Vicky McDonald. Vicky has some supporters here with her, I think. Yes, no? Yes. Vicky is talking on behalf of the Northland Athletics and Gymnasium Stadium Trust, and their submission is on volume 4, page 90. Vicky, as you know, you've done this many, many times before explaining things. This is a 5-minute spot. Your submission has been read, it is there for us to look at. So the big thing is just highlight things that you specifically want us to focus on, and then we can ask questions afterwards if there's anything to clarify. Go for it.
Right. Firstly, kia ora everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. It's really nice to see some familiar faces, and no, I have been here before, and we were very successful the last time, so I'm hoping we are just as successful this time. I'm here on behalf of the Northland Athletics and Gymnastics Stadium Trust and the Whangarei Academy of Gymnastics. I have 2 hats, and where I am a trust member and a club manager. We have outgrown our facility. It's been 10 years, and we are now asking for support to extend it. We're wanting to include a climbing wall, which is now currently located at the Kensington Stadium. This is in the way and reducing the ability to book the courts at Kensington, and we'd like to include it with us in an extension to the current gymnasium at WAGS, which is part of the Trigg Sports Arena. So today, my job, and hopefully will be successful, is to persuade you to, 1, allow us to build in the space of the car park, which is on the southern end of the gymnasium, and 2, ask for some money, because, that's what we'd like to do here. I realise this is a big ask, but it's not that much. And what we want to do will benefit the community. As you know, facilities are the beating heart of a community. They bring people together in all areas, walks of life. The friendships that are created through sport can be lifelong, and it's so important to have these facilities. So to create a larger space, we want to incorporate what our growing codes, which are already at WAGs, are, and that's tumbling and trampoline. So tumbling is a growing sport, and with Dylan Schmidt in the spotlight for trampoline, that is growing as well. And these two sports require a specific space, which is now, with our growing numbers, is being outgrown, especially with tumble. We have got over 60 athletes in tumble, and we've got 3 of them competing internationally. You may have seen them in the paper. They're going to Australian Nationals in a couple of weeks. That's new for us. It's new for gymnastics, and New Zealand has never sent a team before, so to have 3 of them from Whangarei is really quite something, and that's to do with the facility that we have now, but to grow it, we really need more room. So you rewind 15 years, I was here asking for money for the now Trig Sports Arena, and we've been 10 years there now, and it's been a huge success. WAGs has doubled in numbers. We've gone from under 300 to over 600 now, and we are continuing to grow. And this is despite COVID, despite all the financial crisis that's going on. We do believe that the benefit we give to the health and well-being of the community, physical and mental, is just huge, and it pays dividends. So, yes, we operate 48 weeks of the year, 6 days a week. So we're pretty busy, and you'll see from the photo just how busy it is. We've got 70 to 80 kids through at any one time in that after-school slot. So we are busy. Because we are a multi-sport facility, within those codes of gymnastics, we've got tumble and trampoline, parkour and cheer. So we're already a multi-sport facility, catering for many needs of all ages and abilities. And that growth that we are experiencing is just phenomenal. But because we are a foundation sport, those skills that are learned in gymnastics are transferred to anywhere other sports. So the parallels between gymnastics and climbing is quite significant. And any ninja warrior that you might have seen on TV, the good ones are the gymnasts because they've got that upper body strength. So, yes, so the climbing wall in particular at Kensington's got a lifespan of 5 years. And currently the current space at Kensington Fitness Centre, Kensington Stadium cannot be used because of the climbing wall is in the way. So we're already limiting what we've got already, and we want to optimise those facilities that we've got to make sure that everybody is catered for. Obviously, there are a few disadvantages if we want to extend into the car park. We're going to lose those car parks, which is used, the only time they're really used are the Saturday mornings, those 20 weeks in the middle part of the year. So, but we've got some solutions. There is some ground just south of the track, which I've circled in the picture, to say that that land right now is not used for anything and could be used for car parking. There's also a green area with some trees, which could also be used for car parking. And as the population of Whangarei has grown, as predicted by council, yes, we need to be ready to make use of the land that we've got and develop the facilities that will incorporate the growing needs of society. You would see in there that I've put in, you know, so the sporting needs and recreation needs of people is changing. People don't have time to do organised sport. They have half an hour after work or whatever. So we need to be catering to those people to make sure they do remain active. It's important that people have physical activity. So climbing fits right into that because you can just go when you want. And we would imagine that the facility with the extension would be operating late into the night. We're already being used from 9 till 8 every day. So, in summary, where's my summary? So we want to cater to the growing needs. We want to optimise the facilities that we've got right now, and we also need your support. And we're already turning away schools for climbing because they just can't get in. It's too busy. So we really need to cater for that need right now.
Well done, Vicky. Very concise. Well done.
Thank you.
Vicky, there's a question there from Councillor Olsen.
Vicky, Thanks for your presentation. So yeah, the loss of the car parks, the 28 in total car parks that will be lost, is that, and the proposal for the new car park, is that included in your costs, in your building costs?
Is it included in my building costs? Yes, we did include a small amount. I think it was 40,000. I've got a breakdown of the tree cost if you would like it.
Do you know how many car parks that would give us? And will there be any disabled?
Yes, there would be disabled. I'm not a car park expert, but the land area is quite large, so it would be at least the size of what we're losing.
Okay, cool. And final question: the greenfield that you mentioned, is that the gap going from Park Ave onto the field where the fruit trees?
There's trees there now,
trees
and there's a drain.
Yep.
Yes,
gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Vicky.
Vicky, the only question I have for you is in relation to funding side of things. With hockey, they have done a loan with us. Is that something you guys are interested in?
Yes, we did that previously. So, and obviously with council support, we're more likely to get funding from other funders. So there is a $2 million grant for facilities from North Community Trust, which is eligible. We'd be eligible for. I have checked that, so we would be eligible for that funding if we had some support from council. That would make it all come together.
So you're happy with the idea of a loan? You've had that before, and the rates were acceptable last time?
Yes, it was just a straight loan with no interest, so that was fine.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions from the councillors? No? Well done, Vicky. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening.
Our next bidder is Sean Taylor, and that is on the Tutukaka Boat Ramp Reinstatement Group, Volume 8, page 9. And I believe there's a handout for that one too. Basically, Sean, you've got 5 minutes. The time is yours. Take your time. Just there's no point in rereading what you've got here. Highlight on things that you want us to deal with. Okay, okay.
Kia ora, His Worship and other councillors. Thanks for hearing me today. This is my first time doing this, so you'll have to excuse if I do a few errors and stuff like that. But thank you for hearing me all the same. My name is Sean Taylor. I'm married with 2 teenage boys. I have been living on the Tutukaka coast for 16 years. I'm a builder that has always worked on the coast, and I'm an avid fisherman on the Tutukaka coast and all over Northland. As a keen boatie, I've noticed the increase in boat users over the years. Tutukaka Boat Ramp has dramatically increased in popularity and usage, which reflects the increase in trailer boat usage. The ramp has lost one of its pontoons due to age and dilapidation. Although it wasn't an ideal ramp at the time, it gave the ability to drop someone off to back the car down and easing congestion. There's now only half the capacity to launch on the only all-tide ramp between Whangarei Harbour and the Bay of Islands. This also has created severe delays, traffic issues on and off the water, hindering smooth launching during the extremely busy summer season, impacting local businesses, tourism, and overall level of performance of this valuable council facility. You'll see in front of you, you have a handout. On the first page, it shows evidence. I'll just get my copy out so I know what I'm talking about. On the first page, it shows evidence of the boats queuing up. I personally experienced one day over the summer where I had to wait 45 minutes. While I was waiting, I witnessed everyone having to manoeuvre around launches and poles with tensions building. I don't know if many of you are boaties, but when there's a little bit of wind, it's pretty hard to keep your boat still. It's not like a car. It doesn't just sit there. Yeah, although I don't have any photos of the queues that happened on land as well. The trailer boats were queued up the hill towards Nungaru and Matapoti. On the second page, there is an aerial photo of the existing ramp and illustration of the proposed new ramp. And on the third page, there is a photo of the Marsden Cove boat ramp. Option 1 is preferable and reinstates a second pontoon system for launching, enabling increased launching capacity, one single lane, and on the other side, a double lane. The double lane not only enables 2 boats to launch, it also gives us, it is a requirement to pull out large boats for maintenance. Option 2 uses the existing pontoons and shifts them to the middle area, highlighted in the red on the illustration. It'll be similar to the Marsden Cove photo. In the community, there is a strong support for this project, with a lot of local businesses willing to help with the project. I'd like to have talked costs with you today, but I feel I don't have enough details given the flexibility of designs we have. Over the next few weeks, I intend to gather some firm prices from local contractors that have a genuine interest in the boat ramp and the Tutukaka coast in general. Where we can, we will try and keep the cost down. With it being a public boat ramp, it will obviously have to go through the right channels. In conclusion, this boat ramp is not operating at full potential, and because of that is affecting the local infrastructure. It is operating at potential. If it was operating at a potential, it would bring people from far and wide to use it, adding more revenue to the area during these tough times. Thank you very much for listening to me, and just an update on how I said I didn't have any sort of figures. Just received an email from one of the local contractors, and he has given me a sort of an estimate on option 2, which possibly could go ahead. That is considerably cheaper than the other options that I did have previously. So if you want to know that, I can share that with you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. And what was that cost?
So that's approximately 50,000 plus GST.
Okay. Any other questions from the councillors? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks so much, Sean, and others for coming in. Do you get a sense of the reputational sort of risk to the area by the limitation imposed by only having one pontoon for the ramp? Like Tutukaka is obviously a tourist attraction.
Yep.
Did you get much of a sense from people visiting and that sort of thing as to the impact?
Yeah, to be honest, it's actually quite embarrassing. It's one of the fishing meccas in New Zealand, and we've got a ramp that's just, got huge queues and, things like that compared to other boat ramps around the country. So, yeah, definitely. It's affecting the local, reputation.
And if there was the ability to find some money from council, is there any capacity for the community to find other sources of funding to top it up? Do you know?
So at the moment there is set fees, but it's sort of koha based because I'm sort of new to all this, but it's very cheap, i.e. $2, and it's a koha. So, and 35 I think per year, but we would definitely want to put that up. Sort of if we went for option 2, which being the cheaper one, we potentially would like to fundraise for the option 1. And put sort of a schematic photo printout like you do on a building that's potentially going to happen, and that would give people incentive to pay when they can see, potentially it's going to be a 3-lane, therefore 3 times as fast, easing tensions at holiday time, and people just want to have a good time,
Thanks for coming in. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions for you there, Sean. So thank you very much for taking time to come in.
Thanks very much, guys.
Our next speaker is Ron Ford, volume 14, page 56. Ron, you can come on up.
Tēnā koutou katoa, and good morning everybody. My name is Ron Ford. I'm chair of the Tutukaka Coast Residents and Ratepayers Association, and I'd just like to say a little bit about the group. We have an exec, and we regularly have input into the Tutukaka Marina Trust with a delegate there, with Civil Defence, with Mahinga Kai, the Community Garden, and now the Community Response Group, and more recently the Community Patrol Group. And seeing Scott and Gavin here, we have regular input from the councillors, including Amy McDonald. And we represent an area that stretches from Ngunguru Ford Road through to Matapodi, population of about 3,500. And we undertook a survey 3 years ago, and there were 675 responses to that. And that's essentially the basis of our submission today. The key issues that were identified from this were environmental sustainability, road safety, the impact of tourism. Interesting what Sean Taylor's just said, because a lot of what he said, we can reflect on that and say, yes, we agree with that. Pollution, planning for emergencies and services. And our work then, since then, has focused on responding to these priorities through establishing a number of focus groups, which sometimes come and speak prior to our meetings, and other initiatives. I'd firstly like to acknowledge the good work that's been done historically by staff and councillors in the area. But however, we have also noticed the examples of wasteful expenditure and its impact on the value of ratepayers' money being not so well used. An attempt some years ago to address coastal erosion in the area north of Sandy Bay and latterly a not dissimilar attempt at Matapodi, which both turned out to be very expensive and failed attempts, are good examples. But the Murphy's Corner reseal, I drove across it this morning, and that's been a mission too, and that would have cost the council a lot of extra money. Well, hopefully not the council, maybe the National Roads Board. But what we're saying is if things can be done right the first time, money would be saved, considering there's a 17.2% rates increase, which I now intend to speak about. And given the impact of inflation on family budgets for food, power, fuel, insurance, etc., and rent, and interest rates, it's having a massive effect on people. And this figure concerns us, and we wonder if there's any chance that the 17.2% can be reduced slightly, and maybe the subsequent years increased a wee bit to cope with the impact it would have on families especially. We ask that you reconsider that, conscious of the hundreds of hours that have gone into setting budgets by council staff and councillors. And as you can see from our written submission, road safety is a concern for our community, and we wish to affirm the support for the proposed speed review to go ahead. The 100k speed limit on this winding narrow road and not very well sealed at times contributes to numerous crashes, and there have been fatalities and near misses, and many in our community believe that that 100k limit is too high. I understand it's now under review. We've also submitted previously to the council to get a footpath in Ngunguru in Kaupapa Crescent, and interesting, as the submission pointed out, not only is this the only street in Ngunguru without a footpath, it would probably be the busiest walkway in the whole of the Tutukaka Coast area. The membership of the Ngunguru Sports Association now has over 1,000 members, but walking along Kaupapa Crescent with families pushing prams and pushchairs, children bouncing basketballs, skating, scootering, cycling, kicking soccer balls, have to avoid traffic. There's no footpath. And although a high percentage of those motorists drive slowly, it is unsafe. And residents I spoke to when a petition was prepared some years ago feared, more than one person said this, one day there would be a death. Near misses are the norm. Our association asked that this submission be looked at again in the 24-25 funding discussion. And furthermore, the Tamaika Road area, which has had some work done on previously down towards the school, is another well-known danger area for our tamariki, And although the recent pedestrian crossings and traffic calming additions, thanks WDC, they're beautiful and very highly regarded, and they've helped, but there's still room for that particular corner at Jamaica Road to be made more safe. The restoration of the Rongaroo seawall has been an ongoing saga, and the ongoing delays of this work are unacceptable. Many in the community roll their eyes and shrug when we tell them, because we frequently get asked, what's happening with that seawall? And there's the odd expletive, and hopefully it was supposed to start after Easter. It's now May, and I've since spoken to Clement's contractors as well as Raymond Short, the project manager, and I'm not sure when it's going to start. Freedom camping is another area in our submission. We support the continuation of the monitoring and compliance and the existing ambassador program. However, we do not support this going through an additional rates increase. I want to conclude by highlighting, and this is very similar to what Sean's just said, the Tutakaka Coast area. I'm sure many of you are aware it's world rated for the quality of its coast for many different reasons. It attracts a lot of income, of course, and extra traffic, and its impact on roads and road safety, and sadly pollution at times, and extra pressure in the freedom parking areas. The Tutakaka Coast as a tourist attraction contributes much to the district and wider Northland and New Zealand. To ensure this is sustainable, a coordinated and strategic approach managing the impact of tourism is required, and we ask that the Council give special consideration, as this is an area that's more popular than ever with the addition of cruise ships. There were 3 last year at the Whangarei Harbour, likely to increase over the coming years. Many of these issues that I've spoken about today are becoming more and more relevant. I thank you again for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. Is there any questions for Ron for clarification? No, Ron, you've done very, very well. The submission was well written. Thank you very much. Thank you for providing it. Our next submitter is Tama Jones from Northern Hockey. His submission is on volume 3, page 117.
This is on? Yep. Still on. Right, tēnā koutou katoa, he CEO hau I Hockey Northland, ko Tama Jones tōku ingoa. 7 days in the job, so this is pretty new, first time in front of council, so bear with me and I hope I do justice. Hockey Northland, first and foremost, is grateful for the support that we've had from Whangarei District Council. Our long-standing and mutual partnership has enabled our district to have a world-class community hub. Not only have we entertained and engaged our district to numerous international events, high-level tournaments, but more importantly, we've provided a space that is vibrant, safe, and whānau-friendly. As an example, over the next 12 months, on top of our regular offerings, we're going to host national events for rangatahi through secondary school tournaments, a national Māori tournament, which is 29 teams previously last year, which is over 500 people. And finally, National Masters with a staggering 97 teams, over 1,500 people, and that's excluding coaches, managers, and officials that also come. So they will get to come and visit and explore our wonderful district. And these alone showcase some of the diversity our game engages with. While our drive is to increase participation through quality experiences, we take pride in providing our opportunity for social connection. It is a space where our 2,500 players, plus our coaches, officials, their friends and families converge, whether it's on the turf, on the sideline, crossing turfs, up in the pavilion, having a bite to eat, a drink or two. It is significantly more than just a space to play a game of hockey. Being on artificial turfs, it is also important for freeing up enough grass fields for other sports. We estimate that one of our turfs is equivalent to approximately 10 grass fields. And since 1985, our current turfs have likely released up to about 28 grass fields across the district. Our advantage is obviously being able to effectively use this space from early morning to evening and largely unaffected by the weather conditions. It provides certainty for our community around well-being and the physical value that it adds. Additional fields will also be needed as hockey playing numbers continue to grow. And with increasing demand for local provision, I wonder if there's going to be capacity to provide fields or any other spaces for hockey without these artificial fields, turfs. My next point is that hockey has a rich history of innovation and early adoption of technology. At the very top, our international body is striving to create a sustainable future for our sport. They are actively looking at ways to reduce, conserve the amount of water that are used on turfs currently, and also moving towards a dry turf option. They're also looking at reducing our carbon footprint and minimising the use of plastics. And Hockey Northland actively support this aspiration and will explore solutions for our turfs from electric vehicles and recycling programs as examples. We will look to utilise new technology and materials to play our part in this movement. And so in terms of the long-term plan, we're actively keen to see how we can make sure we stay ahead of the game to meet our requirements here, or responsibilities. My final point is that the ongoing support from the Whangarei District Council makes participating as accessible as possible, especially in this current landscape. It frightens me to think what impact there would be without this ongoing support. With the wider value of sport for people and our community, this is certainly an outcome we both share. We also want to acknowledge that this is only ever seen as a hand up and not a handout. Our members have paid for all the floodlighting and approximately 40% of new turf construction over the years of our facility. So in summary, I would like to reiterate that our space is more than just somewhere to play a game and connects with diverse people in our community. It provides an economical solution to maximise spaces and places to play sport, not only hockey. Hockey Northland and our sport are committed to environmental sustainability and minimising our carbon footprint as we move forward. And finally, the equitable support from the District Council provides accessibility to our sport, which cannot be understated. And I guess therefore, Hockey Northland wholeheartedly values the continued support of the Whangarei District Council for future turf replacement, as well as our future additional turf. Not only does it provide a accessible sport and connection for people of all ages, abilities and cultures, but it's a certainty for our planning and implementation. So I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Tama. Appreciate you coming in and doing that. Is there any questions for Tama? You've highlighted things very, very well. I'm wondering, you read a speech out there. Are you able to hand a copy of that to us?
A copy, I can, yes, sorry. Yep.
Brilliant. Hand that to the team over there. They'll quite happy to take that. But thank you very much for coming in, Tama.
Cool, thank you all.
Yeah. Our next speaker is Tracy Rossetto. Tracy is coming from the New Zealand Automotive Association. Her submission is, or their submission is on volume 6, page 40. Tracy's no stranger to the chambers, so you understand the process.
I'm a newbie, but I'll learn fast.
Newbie, oh, you've got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We encourage you not to read your submission, but talk to things that you want to highlight us to highlight on, and there'll be a chance for the councillors to ask clarifying questions only.
Certainly. Thank you, councillors, for giving me the opportunity to orally probably give a bit more information than the 2 lines that are in the in the submission. We're a bit submission fatigued at the AA. So I chair the Northland Council of the New Zealand Automobile Association, which has over 1.8 million members. Northland is one of 18 district councils with a membership of 53,000, 28,000 being in the Whangarei district. The council submission to the long-term plan is regarding the need to have a regional approach to delivering joined-up services for roading and transportation in Northland. I will go through 4 reasons why this regional approach is fundamental for the Whangarei district to grow, prosper and live up to the slogan, "Love it here." First, managing risk. The total roading network that the WDC own is 1,774 kilometres, which equates to over 40% by value of your assets. How does the council manage the risks associated with maintaining the value of those assets? Public dissatisfaction about the quality of surfaces and the frequency of repairs continues to grow, which is an indication of a deteriorating asset base. We all understand that the funding available does not meet the costs associated with these assets. What this council can control is the level of expertise and efficiencies that a regional approach to asset, network and contract management, planning and specialised aspects of the network can bring. Mentioned in your draft LTP are statements, renewals with an emphasis on resilience. Unsealed roads can result in adverse health impacts to residents. The need to meet community expectations and levels of services. How is this council going to ensure that a large percentage of our asset base is adequately maintained and renewed? Second one, economic potential. The recent report by the Northland Corporate Group to unleash the economic potential of Northland through the proposed 4-lane expressway connecting Te Tokau Northland to Auckland by 2040 quantifies how transport infrastructure can change lives. By combining our resources and being collaborative in our approach on a region-wide basis, Whangarei has the opportunity to achieve better outcomes for its economy, residents and road users. Your draft LTP includes statements of keeping ahead of growth and enabling capacity, ensuring you are in a position to take advantage of funding options, being proactive, and focusing on getting the planning right. Having a highly skilled and responsive team delivering Whangarei's roading and transport services will be an enabler. Northland as a region can afford to attract and employ skilled specialists whom the individual local roading authorities would not be able to. Third, one voice. Recent meetings with government ministers and CEOs of large Te Tokau businesses have established that our region needs to advocate with one voice to be heard and to be effective. The work that the Mayoral Forum undertook in producing the Blue Book, establishing the infrastructure damage from last year's severe weather events within weeks, quantifying what work was required and requesting funding, ensured that decision makers had the information required in a timely manner to respond. This work would not have been produced without the knowledge and skill base of a regional roading and transportation team. And lastly, road safety. As the region with the highest number of road fatalities per head of population, Northland needs to do better. Whangarei, as at the end of April, has had 8 fatalities, 2 of these on local roads. We have 17.6 of New Zealand fatalities to date, 18 this year, almost double the same time last year. An integrated regional approach to road safety ensures that there are highly skilled road safety engineers working with road safety partners to identify priority areas of action based on data. The AA Northland Council is aware of decisions being made regarding the current delivery vehicle for a regional approach to roading and transportation, following a Section 17A review of the Northland Transport Alliance. Our submission is to ensure that there is retained a regional approach to roading and transportation services, including public transport and safety initiatives. A regional approach is fundamental for the Whangarei district to grow, prosper and live up to the slogan, "Love it here." Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Well done. Is there any questions for Tracy? Tracy, with you've read a submission out there. Yep. Are you able to hand that to us to go through?
Certainly.
Yep. Thank you very much. Alex, you've got your one, have you? Or no, Jade? Jade, you're going to have your one. I'm just conscious of time because we've just councillors are required to stand up after 2 hours. I'm just conscious that when the submission comes, you're doing your submission, we might have to take a break at this point and then come straight back. So you don't mind that?
I'm actually meant to be in the next one. So.
Excellent, great. That would be good. So, councillors, we're going to take a 10-minute break and we'll come back again at bang on 11 o'clock. is Jade. Jade is on volume 4, page 12. Jade, you've been in the room long enough to see how the process goes. You've got 5 minutes. Take your time with your submission. Try not to read the one you've got, and try to talk to us with the information you'd like us to pick up.
Well, thank you everyone for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jade Keswick. I grew up here in Whangarei. I've been a homeowner here for 4 years. I'm a civil engineer and I've worked in the civil construction sector for 11 years. The past 5 years have been based here in Whangarei, working predominantly on land development. I've also been tendering consistently over this time, so I have a solid understanding of costs and how recent inflation has affected pricing. My main concern for the near future is spending. Inflation has run rampant. Our district is now facing large shortfalls between rates revenue and the cost involved for maintaining current services and upkeep of our existing infrastructure, and that's before cost of new projects are taken into account. The cost of living is hurting a great deal of New Zealanders, and the residents of Whangarei no exception. People are struggling to buy food and pay their bills, and the council are now asking them to pay a significant sum more for your services. At the same time, they have watched council pay excessive amounts of money on speed tables and speed signs, throwing large wads of cash at failing tourist attractions that were sold to ratepayers as being able to pay for themselves, and seeing our roads deteriorating. My request is that council takes into account the pain that its residents are feeling with parting with their hard-earned cash, while considering how this money is being spent. Now is time for fiscal responsibility. Council to date, in the most part, has been extremely smart with its spending. Infrastructure has been well maintained and updated significantly in the past couple of decades, and public facilities have been improved to such a high standards. Notably, the Loop has added a vibrancy and a heart to the city. Whangarei has far exceeded the sad, run-down, poor little town that I grew up in. But we must hit a pause on some of these nice-to-haves for hopefully a short period to help overcome these hard times. I'm glad to hear that the Tukipanga Sports Complex has been put on hold. It will be a nice, wonderful addition to our city once the upgrade is built. But for now, it is a nice-to-have, and there are sports fields there for us to use in the meantime. I urge you to consider doing the same for items such as becoming a Northland Inc. shareholder. It will be a nice to have. It will be nice to have a say in this, but the cost should be considered. We can always become a shareholder at a later date. This opportunity will not be taken off the table tomorrow, and Northland Inc. will continue to provide for Whangarei to some degree, even without our input. Things like the development of Forum North should be looked at far more closely. There is little doubt that this building is in dire need of maintenance works. The question should be, is now the time, and what is the best way to move forward with this? Is it time to demolish the building and leave a barren piece of land while we wait for council coffers to be replenished? I must insist that until finances improve, proper business cases be undertaken for any of these similar expensive, nice-to-have projects. Although many of these cultural and social develops are not constructed to make money, they must be fit for purpose. There is no point constructing a theatre that is too small for a performer to be able to hire and be able to actually sell enough tickets to cover the hireage costs, as the performers will just not come. A proper investigation of users, demand and costs will help ensure that these nice-to-haves will provide the best value for money. Times are tough. The cost of living is hurting the people of Whangarei, and I urge you to think of this with every dollar of public money that you spend. Thank you, everyone.
Well done, Jade. Appreciate your submission. Is there any questions from the councillors for clarifications? No questions. Jade, what you've read out is not what's in here on the documents.
It's additional. I've got extra copies that I asked for them to hand out after I'm done.
Brilliant.
So.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
No worries. Our next submitter is Alex Schmidt. Alex is on supplementary agenda page it says online page 75.
Kia ora katoa katoa. Is it on?
Nope. Press the button. That's it.
I was on already. Kia ora, everyone. My name's Alex Spitz. I'm here representing the Hikurangi Sports Hub proposal and request for the council to bring some funding forward from the long-term plan into sort of the shorter-term plan with regards to a sports hub. So why do we need this project? Hikurangi's been identified by a growth node by the council. You know, we've got a number of subdivisions happening within Hikurangi, plus a sort of proliferation of people moving out with regards to lifestyle properties. And there's been numerous reports which have been completed in collaboration with the council that have identified the need for a sort of modern sports facility to cater to the needs locally. Hikurangi as a town has a strong community spirit, and we have, I think, a very strong community-led development or collaboration approach with the council. So we're trying to work with the council to ensure that the needs of the township and the wider district are met for the short term and the long term, up to sort of 50 years from now. We've already completed a needs analysis and a master plan, which has sort of identifies what we're looking at, and again, this has been worked in partnership with council. And through the needs analysis and master plan, we as I said, we're looking at how do we cater for today, but also moving through to 50 years from now. We don't want to develop a community village, a district, and then sort of suddenly in 50 years' time say, hey, we forgot about basic infrastructure. But when you look at the Hikurangi as a town, it's important to understand the essence of what Hikurangi is. It's not just the village; it is the wider rural community. You know, we cater for rural communities, sort of north of Whangarei, from Kodi to Ruatangata to Hukranui, Tauai, Whananaki to Whangaruru. So it is a very wide area, and you know, the vision of our sports hub is to be able to create the needs, provide for the needs of the sports and recreation opportunities for the wider region, and also other commercial aspects around sports and recreation within the wider community. We have a vision for a professionally managed facility that will enhance those opportunities, a commercial gym, a healthcare facility, whānau recreation and leisure, and overall a community hub. And everyone knows that a kid in sport is a kid out of court, and also that a healthier community is also cost less in the long run. I can also say as a rural resident and a rural father that you know, we're always looking for additional sporting opportunities for our family, but for everything else, for everything new we want to do, we have to sort of cater for a 40-minute trip if we have to come into Whangarei. So by having something sort of mid-north, it does help cater to the sports opportunities for the wider area, but also for sports organisations in terms of providing a sort of mid-north hub where we can mitigate travel. We all know that Kensington is at its capacity in terms of rugby and netball, and Hikurangi can also could longer term provide some of that spillover usage. The current facility is dated and can't even really cater to the current demand of the Hikurangi Rugby Club. You know, the changing rooms are dated. You know, we've got a growth in women's sport and women's rugby in particular, and with the current change room situations, it just doesn't cater to those needs. So what we're looking for really is that we need to start the journey now. You know, this is going to be a long journey. We're pretty realistic about what it needs to take to make this work. But the longer we wait, the longer the problem's going to be. So we want to start the journey now. We need the council to bring some funding into the next phase of the long-term plan, so we can start using that for leverage funding. I believe we're building a capable team that's going to be able to take the journey in partnership with the council and really make this happen. So you know, you guys have identified this as a need, and as a community, we're wanting to pick the ball up and run with it. So, but we just need some tools, and we need some credibility and collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. Is there any questions for Alex? Well done.
Must have nailed it, eh?
Must have nailed it.
I look forward to the checkbook being opened. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. Our next submitter is Richard Smith, volume 6, page 115. And there's a handout coming out with Richard's as well. Richard, the right mouse or the right button on the microphone there turns it on. No. That's it. Excellent. You've got 5 minutes and generally allow some time for the councillors to ask questions at the end if need be.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors and staff and fellow citizens. I've provided a written handout, but I'll try to skip bits of it to keep down to the time limit. My submission is primarily focused on the importance of ensuring sufficient resources are put into the common good rather than retained privately. And firstly, I wanted to congratulate the Council on the quality of the planning and presentation of the long-term plan. I'm thrilled to see that recognition has been given to the importance of ensuring that rate rises reflect the increasing costs of providing infrastructure and services, rather than focusing on keeping the rates low, regardless of what it implies for the quality of the facilities available and for the well-being of residents. If everybody who lives in this district was well housed, well fed and well occupied, that would be good reason indeed for everybody to love it here. I want to address first the topic of joining the Northland Inc. as a shareholder. And I'm concerned that with rising unemployment and firms facing difficulties in maintaining solvent, I wonder if this is not an opportunity that's otherwise likely to be missed of using counter-cyclical expenditure to get much more bang for our bucks over the next short period. I wonder also if there's an opportunity through Northland Inc. or directly as a district to explore with central government the possibility of the unemployment benefit for residents being paid directly to council. This would provide an alternative income stream for local government been calling for, and as an example of how this could be used, the Housing First initiative in Hamilton may provide a model for how much of the most problematic issues could be effectively tackled in conjunction with other local agencies and groups. I've talked about the freedom camping, and in particular with the unemployed living in cars and so on. I think that it would be valuable to continue having very skilled and friendly ambassadors who can work with those who would otherwise become increasingly alienated and potentially disruptive in our community. If the council could facilitate the development of a safe night shelter for those in need, it would further enhance the sense of belonging and care those most in need would be likely to feel, and make those of us who feel care proud of being part of this district. In looking at the commercial property options, I use the example of Whangarei Youth Music as a very constructive use of council property for community good outcomes rather than just commercial use. And now I want to turn primarily to the issue of rates. Our history is one of private interests overriding the common good and the resulting impoverishment of those with the least. Now we have an opportunity to use counter-cyclical spending to gain ground on some key long-term goals and to make our district one where the poorest 40% of the population have access to better facilities and services, to make this a place all people love to live in, not just for the wealthiest. I'm concerned that the council will adopt the lowest possible rates increase, as previous councils so often have, and so forgo the many great possibilities this long-term plan and its potential enhancements could provide. If infrastructure costs have increased by 27 to 38%, why are we discussing a proposal for a mere 17.2% increase? Surely that must imply we're going backwards. Why we only need to look at our nation's capital, Wellington, to see where underfunding of vital infrastructure gets us. If we're to complete cyclone repairs, rebuild and future-proof our roads, maintain our other assets, and prepare for growth and climate change, we need to seriously consider a greater increase than 17.2%. I know this will be hard, especially in a time of rapidly rising prices and costs for households. I myself will find it hard on a limited income and no earnings. I'm sure there'll be protests about the impact on low-income households, but Council already has provisions in place to reduce the burden on those most severely impacted by poverty. These may need enhancing, but they are there. The issue of fairness is also likely to be raised. In recent years, the mantra of user pays has been frequently used to justify the way taxes and rates are applied. I want to consider this issue from another perspective, one that used to be applied widely in New Zealand. From each according to their means, to each according to their needs. From this perspective, the wealthier a person is, the more they pay. Treasury demonstrated last year that in New Zealand, the wealthy pay much lower rates of tax than those on more modest incomes. This applies to rates based on land value and especially to a uniform general charge. To better reflect the ability to pay, I think a capital value-based rating system would be fairer to all. While the wealthier members of our community will also have very effective ways of voicing their opposition to such a prospect, I'd like to submit this proposal to Council as a way to build a fairer and better community in Whangarei.
Thank you, Richard. It's nice to hear from your submission there. Is there any questions? Councillor Peters, you got a question?
Yes, thank you for that. That was a really interesting submission and one that deserves a lot of thought. When you talk about enhancing support for those least able to pay their rates, what sort of enhancement are you thinking about? What sort of things do you think we should be doing?
At the moment, the provisions are fairly sort of cut and dried. I think that we could use a slightly more graded relinquishment of rates for those on low incomes and those with limited means.
Okay.
It's the gradation rather than just one cut-off.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. I don't think there's any more questions there, but thank you very much for your submission. Thank you for taking the time to come in. And yeah, thank you. Our next submitter is Laurel Devine. There's Laurel. Laurel's submission is on volume 2, page 38. As before, Laurel, I encourage you not to just read your submission. We've got it in front of us. So if you've got, highlight parts of it that you want us to focus on, okay?
Great. Cool. Okay, kia ora koutou. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your work and your attention and the listening that you're doing over these few days. My name's Laurel Devine and I'm here to speak in response to the proposed Lyric Theatre build. I'm responding as someone who works full-time in the performing arts sector, both locally and within the wider industry. I'm an actor, theatre maker, director, teacher and producer. I build performance locally and support many other people to do that. I work closely with Creative New Zealand to support more artists in Te Tai Tokerau to access funding and strengthen our region's role and position in the national performing arts ecosystem. I've worked to develop the 116 space and project over the last 8 years with hundreds of other people in collaboration with the Whangarei District Council, which has been an amazing project and investment in the development of hundreds of local arts and community projects and people, and has huge community impact. Thank you for your continued support and collaboration. It has become a thriving grassroots hub, the bottom rung of the ladder. I'm part of the Whangarei Fringe Festival team, which is our citywide community arts festival that happens in October. 11,000 people were at the last audience members participated in Fringe last year, hopefully more this year. A huge focus for me is specifically to support our local people, artists, young people and community to make strong, profound, original performance work here and grow our local industry and ecosystem. And part of that is supporting work to tour here that will serve and inspire and build audiences, different audiences here. I believe in the power of storytelling. I believe in the power of performance and art as a way to share stories, to uplift local voices, history, to explore cultural identity, to explore our difference, our humanity, to challenge, to celebrate, to have robust conversations. It's a place for young people to be inspired and use that platform to explore their identities and their future. It is hauora, it is well-being. How do we build spaces which allow all the different sectors of our community to engage in storytelling through performance in the way that suits them? We all know the power of space. Space can be the difference between an idea happening and an idea not happening. And when you remove the barriers of space for people, even for an hour, amazing things can happen. And those barriers are usually about access, awareness, trust and cost. And when you can remove some of those barriers for a short time or for a long time, ideas flourish, and eventually those ideas flourish into beautiful, polished manifestations that change the world, that affect our city. That it might be a performance, or it might be an amazing community project that hundreds of people contribute to. Whatever it is, you have to start here in order to get here, and just open that door, give access, remove barriers. If we're going to build a community infrastructure at this time, at this difficult financial time that we are in, then we need to make sure that we are building relevant, accessible spaces that meet the needs of the many, many different people and groups who make up our community. How can we ensure that lots of people access and use it in different ways? People use and need space in different ways. People build and create performance in different ways. Contemporary performance is asking different things of performance spaces, and we need to keep up with that. In a contemporary landscape, post-COVID, if we're going to build into the future, we need to build with that in mind. We need to build with diversity in mind, with accessibility in mind. We need to build with our community in mind, a space that people can use and gather in different ways and can configure differently. We may need to compromise, but that's what it is to be part of a community. We need to maximise our resources so our spaces are used every hour of every day. And that's possible. There's so much activity going on here, so how can we make sure those spaces that we build are in use all the time? How can we create a hub that has a sense of collective ownerships for the hundreds of people who want to engage with it? We want a busy, active, vibrant, bustling space, and to do that we must support different groups and communities to use it and do their thing in different ways. So there are many different entry points to it and different ways of engaging. This builds audience, this builds community. We need to build spaces with our people and our current landscape in mind, and we need to make it easier for people to engage, not more difficult, and really address the barrier of cost. How will local people be able to afford to use this space? We need to really spend time to understand our community needs, understand what barriers different people in our community face. How can we serve the development of people here to create work and activity that can fit inside these spaces? We must consider it as part of a wider conversation. We must ensure robust industry consultation, robust local consultation, and let that lead the way to how it is designed and conceived. Our people must be at the heart of the design. that's the end. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Laurel. Appreciate your submission there. Councillor Peters, you've got a question.
Yes, I have. Thank you very much for that presentation. I do think 116 is used for every hour of every day.
That's right.
I just want to ask if you've got an indication of the number of young people who benefit from it, and by young people under 35.
116. Gosh, hundreds of young people benefit from it. I guess we collaborate with Northern Youth Theatre, with Kumarani, with Northern Youth Music. Our position, I suppose, we work a lot with the schools. So when performances come, schools come in and see it, Girls High, Boys High, Tiki, Kāmore, some of the intermediates, some of the kura kaupapa, depending on what is in the space. But I think also what we try to position ourselves to support young people into creating events themselves. So we've had a big push on mentoring some young musicians last year around how you actually put on a show. And that's kind of the position where we take. That's why I say that we're the bottom rung of the ladder, is that we're often kind of helping people understand how you put on an event, not just young people, but lots to do with that, how you have ticketing, how you work with technicians. So being that kind of position between community or school and industry, giving people a professional experience of performance. And I would say that level of activity and busyness that 116 is, I would hope that for any space that we build that is further up in the ladder, that's what I'm suggesting, is that we need to make sure that there can be access points from many areas. Yeah.
Thank you, Laurel. Appreciate that. Well done for your submission. Our next submission is Sasha Stevenson. Sasha's submission is on volume 7, page 3. Sasha.
Howdy.
How you going there?
Hello.
Yep, that's it perfectly. Now, your submission and your document's very short, so I'm hoping you've got more to add to it.
Yes, just my 5 minutes, I suppose. Rightio. My name's Sasha. I'm here to talk about fluoride being added to the water, or potentially added. Pretty disappointed, to be honest, to have to come here and front up and beg for people to think about putting this neurotoxin in our water. There's plenty of science out there. I know it's well debated and you might fall on either side of the boundary. But the government has been told by the court it's overstepped the mark at the moment because it hasn't taken into account the Bill of Rights. So you guys can be the intermediary. You can be the one to say, hold on, the judicial process is not finished. You can step in and make that decision. You might argue, they're going to fine us 200 grand or something, 10 grand a day. Well, the truth is that might be true, but I believe this council is quite far in debt. In fact, all the councils are in debt. The country's in debt. Every country's in debt. Every Western country in the world is so far below the red line, it's not funny. USA is $30 trillion in debt. So, I don't think it's a question of money. It's a moral question. It's a question that you guys can here be the hero, at least to put a pause on this potential adding of fluoride to our water. Is fluoride good for our kids? I don't believe so, but it's a debate to be had. I don't want my kids having it, and they can't have informed consent when they go to places to drink water that they don't know where they're drinking from. You can see they've got lots of energy. Long that may be the case, but some science out there, and the EPA, which is a governmental institution in the USA, has some science that says it's not good for our toddlers. It's a weight to ratio issue. We being full-sized are not the same as a fetus or a child. So what's the dose? What medicines do you guys take where you don't know the dose you're taking? Well, that's the case if it's in our water. No? Foolish. It's ridiculous, to be fair. Anyway, let's see what else I scribbled down in my haste, in my childminding. Not everyone wants a quick fix to everything out there. I look around New Zealand, I look around at our society, and I see 30% of people obese, overweight. We're in the top 3 nations in the world. Where's the personal responsibility for this problem? That's what we need to aim for. We need to grow people with personal responsibility. We can't keep trying to fix their problems by adding or removing small items that are very debatable in society. Guys, shh, please, buddy. Now where was he? Righty-ho. At the end of the day, you have the opportunity to put a pause on this proceeding. Even if you can look in the mirror and go, hey, look, we put it on hold as long as we could. It's a lot better than going, no, the government tells us they're going to make us pay if we don't. Who cares? Who cares if they make us pay? Because we're already in debt anyway. So please, put this thing on pause.
Appreciate that, Sasha. Well done. Any questions for Sasha on this? No? Look, you've been very, very clear on your submission. Thank you for that. Yeah.
You're gonna feed the kids now, eh?
It's okay.
One of the councillors has just given them some biscuits.
Right, so the level will go up again.
Good luck with that.
Be your problem now.
Okay, our next submitter is Bridget O'Rourke. Bridget's on volume 5, page 100. Come on up, Bridget. Bridget, as I've told the other submitters, you've got 5 minutes. We've got your submission in front of us, so we can go through it there. I encourage highlighting things that you specifically want us to focus on, or add new things that you may want to add to it. Okay?
Morena tēnā koutou. Hope you can all hear me. I'm an ex-teacher, so I've got a pretty good classroom voice. Give an eye, Danielle. I'm here this morning representing the Whangarei Film Society and to speak in support of our submission to you, our elected mayor and councillors, who are seeking feedback on the long-term plan 2024 through 2034. My name is Bridget O'Rourke and I'm proudly the chair of the largest, littlest film society in the land. This year marks our 21st year of operation and our 18th year of hiring the venues at Forum North for our weekly film nights, which makes us a long-term stakeholder and contributor to the cultural landscape here in Whangarei. And we feel very qualified to speak about the future of Forum North. Basically and simply, this comes down to 3 words: used, open, and alive. We want Forum North to be successfully developed within the next 10 years, having seen how this and previous councils have neglected this property in recent times, divesting itself of all responsibility to the ratepayers and citizens of our district. You ask that we, the citizen submitters, only speak to the more salient points of our submission, and we have 3 particular points to make about why there must be investment and, equally importantly, meaningful future consultation about Forum North, which we want to see become a premier entertainment and arts cultural centre for everyone in this district. In other words, we want what every other district has. Some of you might get that film reference. Point 1, as one of the many cultural groups who provides events that contribute to the social, cultural and economic wellbeing of our community, in other words, the council's kaupapa, we want the council now and future to invest in upgrading Forum North to make its venues more multi-purpose and to future-proof it so that it remains a long-term intergenerational asset for everyone. That Forum North is accessible to everyone to enjoy whatever is happening and showing within the venue. We support the discussion of a lyric theatre being built as this broadens the availability of venues around the city, and it would attract and provide local and world-class entertainment. You've heard very compelling testimony yesterday from the submissions, and we tautoko the mahi of the many people who over many years are again bringing this idea before council. We want to see the same commitment by the Council towards protecting and developing Forum North. The signs in which the Council, past and present, have outlined what might happen to Forum North is deafening. Okay, Council has been mute from the time that this building was first planned to it becoming vacant, and it have even omitted it from the long-term planning this time round. It's simply relegated to a drop-down box under community facilities and services. If this sounds like a telling off, it is. The ongoing neglect of Forum North is a stain on the Council, past and present. So what do we want? Well, simply used, open and alive. A significant upgrade of the facilities within Forum North to future-proof it and make it fit for purpose, as this is long overdue. A case in point is the limited use of the Captain Bougainville Theatre. It's set up for stage performances, but we would like to see it having a DCP, a digital cinema package. Basically, that's an industry standard requirement of cinemas these days. Installed to expand its use so that the cinema could be used to attract film festivals such as the upcoming French Film Festival, which will be screened over the next 3 weeks in both Kirikiri and Matakana. As pointed out by the very eloquent bard of Te Kamo yesterday, we are regularly bypassed for cinema events simply because Forum North does not have the capacity to screen films in the digital cinema package, and this has social and financial consequences. I don't need to make the obvious link of people coming into Forum North and the city centre means money for the local cafes, and how the council and how it would energise the city central precinct. In the previous long-term planning document, 2021 to 31, the number one outcome stated was that in 30 years, the city centre will be a busy and vibrant city centre with a range of retail, entertainment, arts and cultural facilities that offer a unique and authentic experience. So will this aspirational vision of our city centre be experienced by the guests of the yet-to-be-built 4-star Copthorne Hotel? Yes, if they head to the town basin or go along to 116, but sadly no if they wander downtown expecting to find something interesting, arty and cultural. We want Whangarei to be these things and more, and a good place to kickstart this would be by using the momentum and the funding available through the developing and upgrading of Forum North and its facilities. Our situation is that due to the basic equipment available for hire in the CBT, we are limited to what films we can show and in what format we can screen them in. We would like to see Forum North to be the venue for future film festivals and stream shows from the stages of Broadway and West End. Hell, we'd even like to have showcase NAF, the Northland Amateur Filmmakers Festival at Forum North, bringing in people and the much needed revenue. We envisage that whoever has the responsibility for Forum North in the future, whether it's the council or a separate group or a public-private arrangement or some other configuration, will secure enough investment that will allow more than one event taking place in the building at the same time. And this segues into my second point, or our second point. The availability of multi-purpose venues within Forum North is another issue that needs to be addressed by whoever takes on the running of Forum North. Oops. On our website, we have a disclaimer stating that we're affected by the availability of the venues for our film nights. Simply this means that we at Forum North is not fit for purpose and that we're not able to hold 2 events on at the same time. Reasons typically include overcapacity due to safety issues, lack of the fire standards, poor soundproofing between the CBT and the Te Kohitanga Hall, and so on. In making these points about investing in Forum North, I can back up these claims with evidence from our experience of being a long-time user of Forum North, though I'm somewhat concerned that you may only hear my testimony in terms of being that of a blanket or self-interest community group. This is not the case. We, the Whangarei Film Society, are part of the arts and cultural network of groups within the community, and while we all have different needs of Forum North, we are of the same voice. You heard a very passionate explanation by Laurel just before, and the importance of space such as 116, and I would advocate for Forum North as well.
Sorry, Bridget, that's your time is
Sorry,
up.
can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
Just to finish. So,
Keep it very short.
This actually leads into what you're going to ask me about questions. So basically, I wanted to conclude by saying, how do we have our say beyond here today? My question to you is, How are we to be consulted with what happens next? Might a steering committee be formed? How can we go with all the other interested parties be heard? Where do we go from here? Kia ora, ngā mihi nui.
Appreciate that, Bridget. The big thing is this is not for a place for you to ask us questions. We're now at this point where we have the opportunity for councillors to ask you questions. Yep, I appreciate that. And I have to keep reminding my councillors this is not for them to make statements as well. This is about them asking questions for clarifications. So, Councillor Peters.
Kia ora.
Price of the digital cinema package, please.
In the realm of $100,000. Yeah. And that's not only the equipment, but would mean the housing it. It might mean venting, because it would maybe, if it's laser, but there could be heat issues and so on. Could be a trolley to also make it multi-purpose. It can go up and down from the sound desk.
So
around about 100,000.
So that 100,000 includes making it secure when it's not being used for that sort of purpose.
Yeah, roundabout. Yeah, that's what we understand.
Okay, and Councillor Olsen.
Thank you for your presentation. You say you've been working with the Lyric Theatre?
No, but we've been in consultation
with them.
Yeah.
Okay. And within that new Lyric Theatre proposal, is there room for you in that new area?
Well, I understand that they are looking to accommodate 700 plus people in that. We would advocate to retain the Captain Bougainville Theatre, because one of the problems that we have is that when they have a big show in the Captain Bougainville, we are out for at least 6 weeks. There's the rehearsal, the pack-in, the showtime performances, and then the pack-out. So, yeah, that wouldn't work for us.
Okay, so you basically answered my second question, which was around the Bougainville Theatre. Is your society in any position to help with funding?
Yes, we are. We have. Yeah, we've got some money. We're a non-profit, but we have made some profit.
Wonderful. Okay, so it's going to be yeah, thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you, Bridget. And thank you, councillors. No other questions. Well done, Bridget. Thank you for your time. Our next submitter is Fiona Green. Fiona's submission is volume 2, 127. Fiona, you know the situation, how we do it, 5 minutes.
Yes.
And so...
Yeah. I hope to get it under that.
Well done.
Yeah.
Allowing the councillors time to ask questions.
Sorry, I just have quick...
Be well aware that the councillors have got your submission in front of them, so they can read through and read stuff. So this is this time to highlight stuff.
Okay, so I thought I'd add some different things, but the theme, we're just looking at the themes as being important. So, kia ora everyone, my name is Fiona and I am here today to address some important issues that I believe need to be considered in the Whangarei District Council's long-term plan. Firstly, I want to talk about the ongoing debate around fluoridation in our water supply, and thank you, Councillor Olsen and Councillor Benny, for their submissions. I urge the Council, please, to seriously consider the health concerns raised by many members of the community regarding the addition of fluoride in our drinking water. While some may argue the benefits of fluoridation, it is important to take into account the potential harm it may cause to vulnerable members of our community, such as infants, pregnant women, and those with kidney diseases. I believe that the decision to fluoridate should be left to individuals to choose for themselves, rather than being imposed on the entire population, by the government, I guess. Secondly, I want to raise the issue of rates and its impact on poverty. For some members of our community, paying rates can be a financial burden, especially for families on low incomes. I urge the Council to consider alternative ways of generating revenue, which I'm sure you have been, such as implementing a tourist tax. I also want to question why Ratepayers have to pay for water usage at Channel Infrastructure Marsden Point when Channel Infrastructure are a multi-million dollar business. It seems unfair that we are shouldering this cost when they should be able to cover it themselves. And I went to their annual shareholders meeting on Tuesday. It was exciting. Another concern I have is the lack of transparency around community funding. Community funding recipients. While it is great to see community projects being supported by the council, I believe there needs to be a better system in place to track the spending of each group's project. If there is no audit system currently in place, I urge the council to create one to ensure accountability and proper use of these funds. I know that there's groups, even some with good standing within the community, that are not using their the funding that they get from Mongrey District Council in the right area. A lot of people know. I also have my reservations about the formation of council-controlled organisations and the idea of shareholding. While I understand the intention behind it, I believe that there are too many potential risks and complications that may arise. Perhaps it would be better to stick with the way the current council is currently operating. Finally, I would like to suggest that the Finance Committee have less councillors and more people from all walks of life with accounting experience. This would bring a diverse range of perspectives and ensure that financial decisions are being made in the best interest of the community. In conclusion, I hope the Council will consider these points in their long-term plan and take into account the concerns and opinions of the community. Thank you for your time, and we support Hikurangi Conservation Group. And it's pretty obvious. Why would you want to build a blinking dirt bike riding track in an area that's got nesting kiwis, and destroying their habitats? It's just common sense. You're not entirely to blame for the decisions that are made around town, but there's some blinker weird people getting in and just really poor judgment, and that's why people are getting angry, and that's probably why people are scowling at you guys. It's not, but there's been some pretty way out decisions made. It's like just not normal, but people have accepted it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. And just wait there. We'll just see if there's any questions from the councillors. Any questions from the councillors? Yeah, the councillors are just showing the sign language one for appreciation. So, there's no questions from the councillors? No questions. Thank you very much, Fiona. Good submission. Thank you very much. Our next submitter is David Lowry. David's submission is from the Bream Bay Coastal Care Trust, Volume 9, page 41. David, as before, you've got 5 minutes. With the red light on there, that means it's on.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a handout as well that's just being handed out for you, councillors.
Yeah, there's a small alteration. This is a personal submission. Okay. Well, I'd like you to imagine a big barrel of brandy in your living room on your nice carpet. Then someone comes along with a angle grinder and cuts those steel bands. What happens to the barrel? There's nothing to support it, it collapses. The ice shelves around the Antarctic are like those big steel bands. And currently they're melting. And those big bands of ice hold back those glaciers. And when those glaciers start moving, once the cliffs on the sea reach a certain height, the internal forces of the ice can't compete against the vertical shear forces of the ice cliff, and it just collapses it will just collapse like dominoes falling. That's covered in a little video clip that was made by a New Zealand scientist working in the Antarctic and been doing ice core sampling for years. And the current levels of CO2 is about 420 parts per million, which is about the same level it was about 3 million years ago. So they did ice core samples down in the Antarctic to the level where it was 3 million years ago, and they've done the background research, and it's in that video clip that I really think you all should watch. We are facing rapid sea level rise, yet the coastal developments such as the Hoppers development out at Marsden Point is still continuing around the river flats, around Waipu. There's sections on the market there now. What we're doing is we're looking at 40,000 people or something in Ruakaka. That's about 20,000 houses. And if they're all worth $1 million each, that's about $20 billion of property, not including sort of the fittings and everything. When that stuff goes underwater, all those people will have to be relocated. There'll be a $20 billion loss in the district, and that's just Ruakaka. That doesn't include all the development that's likely to happen all around Waipu. I'd really like you to strongly consider what the potential problems that will arise from this. And my immediate suggestion is that we stop having housing in these areas and anticipate what and just build further up the hill. Because eventually you're going to have to build further up the hill anyway. And rather than and when we do have to build further up the hill, we're going to have to find the equivalent of $20 billion to do it with. We're better off to build there now, and then just look down over the seashore and the coastal flats, and just enjoy it as open spaces. Because this is very real. But in the meantime, I think the council's done a very good job with creating quality open spaces around the central city. But this also leads on to another thing, and I've been watching a few YouTubes about not just bikes and stronger cities, stronger towns. And what they're talking about, and what they're really emphasising, is that having an urban sprawl approach rather than sort of a more concentrated development is that the amount of money generated per square kilometre in a more concentrated area is greater, and the costs of providing the infrastructure are less. And when we're at a time where we're going through quite large rate rises, we really need to think about future-proofing the development of this district so that we don't make all the mistakes that have been made with the sort of the Los Angeles urban sprawl, freeways, motorways, and all that sort of thing. And take a look at where this development is, where there's existing shopping centres and infrastructure, and then maybe have two or three story residential development sort of centred around that, with your little cafes and your shops and your bars and your barbers and all that sort of stuff. Because if we're actually going to deal with the financial stresses of the future, and also there's uncertainty as how an economy is going to function when the sea level's sort of 5 or 6 metres higher than what it is today. And that might be sort of before the end of the century. So we have to think in these terms, because I've just walked through Lower Cameron Street and around Port Road, and there's a lot of things there that are going to have to move. Sorry, my time's up. I'd like to be more positive, but...
Thank you, David. No, we appreciate it. And yes, you are right. That is your time up. Now it's time for questions from the councillors, if there's any clarifying questions. Councillor Peters.
Thank you for that, David. Really important to think about these things. What do you think about the centre of city? Do you think we should move, or do you think we should protect it?
I think there's room for a combination. What I think there's the possibility of is setting it up so it can turn into a little Venice, and then any buildings that are put there have damp coursing at the different levels. So as the sea level rises, you can still have interconnections, and with a damp course keeping it sort of mould free, and you can still have sort of that type of development in the town basin area, but I think it would be a good idea to expand the hubs that have been identified already. That would be sort of quite an easy transition.
Thank you, David. No other questions? No? David, well done.
Oh, thank you.
It was a good read when I went through it, so well done.
Oh, thank you.
Our next submitter is Tony Phipps. Tony is on volume 6, page 3.
Kia ora koutou, Your Worship, councillors, thank you for this opportunity to speak briefly to my submission, brief submission. Lived in Whangarei district and been a ratepayer for 40 years, and also had 40 years involvement in local government in Northland. And just quickly, one of my conclusions out of that 40 years of working local government in Northland is that when the councils of our region collaborate and cooperate and pool resources and work together, the community gets a better result and more bang for their buck. So in terms of your topic 1, I would support WDC becoming a shareholder in Northland Inc. Basically for the reasons that councils struggle alone for capability in specialist areas, and so working together you get a better outcome. And I've also commented a bit just later on in the further comments on transportation. That's why I would also support the continuation of the Northland Transportation Alliance for the reasons that were in the original business case, and that's the ability to recruit and retain all specialist skills you need for managing the roading and the transport system. I'd urge you to continue with that. And probably added to that, not sure what's happening after the changes to the 3 waters, but again, I would conclude that the councils working together and having a joint service delivery for the water services would better serve the community. A couple of other things. Topic 2, the freedom camping, I'd support continuing that. Just as an observation, it does seem like it's still necessary. And if you have the bylaw, well, there's not much point in having the bylaw unless you monitor the need for it and the compliance and follow up on it where necessary. And if the monitoring shows it's not necessary, well, then by all means ditch it all. A couple of other things on transport. Public transport, I think for a community this size, it needs public transport. So just urge you, just because money is a bit tight, don't let the public transport fall by the wayside. If anything, look for ways to improve it so that those suffering hard times and the transport disadvantaged aren't left further behind. Just on one specific thing in our local area, the the Parua Bay Whangarei Heads speed limit thing, I think that the recent changes warrant another look at and a review. It does. It seems to be a bit of a muddle and inconsistent with areas of sort of similar risk throughout the rest of the country and the district. For example, Parua Bay Village, the current 30k zone seems a bit out of step with everything else, and having an underlying 50 with a 40k stuff zone for the school like everywhere else would seem to be addressing the risks appropriately. Stormwater, having had quite a bit to do with some of the response for the events over the last few years, the high intensity rainfall events. I think again it's sort of the poor sibling in the three waters, but don't let it be that, because the recent events have highlighted the damage that happens when the stormwater systems aren't kept up or developed. Solid waste, again a local area one. We live out at Tarakura. So I think the private service out there for disposing of green waste is just closed. And so there isn't any green waste transfer or disposal facilities for that whole Parua Bay Heads area. So request that you have a look at that and see. I mean, there's transfer stations for most of the rest of the district. And last but not, just an idea for planning and regulatory services in terms of improving the quality of life in the district, reducing noise pollution and indeed the carbon emissions. Perhaps consider phasing out the use of internal combustion engine lawnmowers and weed eaters and chainsaws and built up in urban areas. You know, give people there's plenty of cost competitive and much quieter and less emitting electric options. I don't know about you, but if you know, on a peaceful Sunday, if you're sitting there and you just want to have a peaceful Sunday brunch or just a peaceful Sunday, and people start up mowing the lawns and cutting the firewood, and the whole thing turns into a bit of a noise fest. So thank you. That's me.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate your submission. And it's good to see you back in the chambers as well. Is there any questions for Tony? Councillor Holmes, you got a question?
Your Worship, thank you, Tony, for that. Just a quick question. In terms of the speed limits along the Whangarei Heads catchment, you mentioned obviously the one through the village, which has been the source of most of the incoming correspondence to me. What's your view on the rest of the scheme along the catchment?
I guess observations would be these too many changes. It just goes up and down all over the place, and it's hard for people to follow, and they seem not to follow it, partly because of that. And I can see why. It's just that some of it seems to be changes for things that happen over very short periods of time, and most of the time it's not necessary. Like the little 31 for part of Tarakura. A lot of the time, it's only when it's really busy on a summer Sunday sort of thing would you warrant the 30. The rest of the time, not. And then you've got two almost blind corner intersections at either end, which are back in the 50, so it doesn't sort of all make sense.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate your submission. Thank you for taking the time to come in. Our next submitter is Mark Keane he's got his announcement. It says volume 20, page 3. I've actually found it on the supplementary agenda, page 34. So, Mark, you're free to take the seat there, the hot seat. You've got 5 minutes. We encourage you to, as you rather than reading your submission, because it's a good length one, to just highlight parts that you want us to cover. You've got a page. Excellent, well done. And allow the councillors to have any clarifying questions.
Kia ora koutou katoa,
ko Markeen Tokuinga. I'll be straight up now. I'm a WDC employee, asset manager or asset engineer in the water department, infrastructure department. Making the submission today. We've got a technical business case, but we're making the submission today in regards to the social well-being and actual well-being of the community and hapu in the area. So firstly off, thank you for the opportunity to present Marai's LTP submission on the Punaroku Flood Mitigation and Access Project. Our submission is to gain project approval and approval of funding for the different elements of the project. This includes funding for feasibility studies, detailed design works, as well as capital construction funding and some operational funding. The problem is the frequency of flooding in the Punaroku Valley and multiple sections of Russell Road, and the detrimental effects that this has on the local kura, marae, valley residents, and the wider Oakara Whangaruru communities. Well-being and ability to live normally when the access is cut off during and after wet weather. Note well, flooding is occurring even when the weather isn't classed as a weather event now, and yeah. Said in our submission, a business case has been developed in partnership with marae, hapu and local residents via various hui and engagement sessions. We used the Mori model, which is a decision-making framework developed to create synergies between the two knowledge systems, Māori knowledge and ways of knowing, and Western ways of knowing and thinking. This model has worked well in the development of our business case and has kept everyone on the same page. And we were able to produce it in 6 to 8 months, which is, we thought was pretty good. With the project, there's some quick wins and some longer term options. Initially, we need around 1.5 million for roading improvements and the LTP activities. These works have water quality benefits as well as flood mitigation benefits. And also feasibility studies of future long-term options, and also viability of study of the Punaroku Awa being a water source to Oakara. We see there's massive benefits with Punaroku Awa being a water source for Oakara in regards to development, which include more ratepayers, and with our coastal management plan out there, provision of water would answer a few of those questions, or what was trying to be accomplished back then. We also need 300k over 3 years for stream improvements in the coastal and flooding activity area. This will be working in conjunction with NRC and their funding that they've got in river clearing, river benching, bunding and stuff to keep the water off the road. There's a major blockage, which I'd like to thank Councillor Reid, Mackenzie and Binny for coming out and seeing those areas along Russell Road that were grossly affected. And I think you guys can agree that some of those areas will have very much detrimental effects, especially the church corner. You saw the blockage there. NRC have put in so far over 800,000, or 800,000 is going towards more benching and bunding along the Awa as well as along the road. And they've also come in around 50,000, or between 30 and 50,000 a year to ongoing river clearing. But some of the blockages there are fairly substantial, so yeah, a helping hand would be appreciated in that space. The benefit of these projects, this project going ahead and these feasibility studies and the capital works, is the local and wider community become more self-sufficient when access has been affected by flooding and other events like slips. We went through this journey, I guess you could say, realising how the magnitude of the flooding and realising we're not Moses and part the waters, and realise if we were going to mitigate flooding there, the cost is just astronomical. And then if you add in the risk of slips of Helena Bay Hill and stuff, it's just not viable. So we've gone along this, not with tunnel vision, and realised that some of the options to fully get rid of the flooding are not possible. But if we make a sustainable community out there, so when they are cut off, that they are able to keep the lights on until access is available, that's what we'd like to work towards.
You paused.
Okay. We would like to see the funding in the LTP to continue the momentum and build more resilient infrastructure to support our community. Thank you for listening to us, and we'll be presenting our business case through the normal channels as well.
Well done, Mark. And it was actually really good reading this. I noticed a lot of costs in there, so my question was really about the cost side of things. Is there any contributions from the local community involved in any of those costs, or are they the actual physical costs from
Physical
council?
costs, so the 300,000 is obviously to help with the river clearing, so the operational costs, but the 1.5 million is for road rising and some culvert replacements. With the detailed design, if we get the funding for the detailed design, that will obviously fully determine how much those costs are, or if we actually need to do the extent of the road rising that we're asking for. So, and realistically, we're just asking for the feasibility studies and viability studies to go ahead, and that will determine the actual final cost of those capital works, as well as seeing if we can realise a few more benefits for the wider community.
Appreciate that. Okay, so Councillor Harding's got a question.
Tēnā koe. Tēnā koe, Mark. Me tō whānau tautoko hoki, kia ora koutou. I just wanted to ask whether you had the opportunity to make an application through the Māori Wellbeing Fund that came out earlier this year?
Yeah, we looked into that. Few issues in regards, or not issues, possible considerations. It's council assets. Secondly, the Maori wellbeing and stuff there, but the project is really wider community wellbeing, and I don't think the amount that they were able to provide was sufficient enough to, and that honestly we thought we would be taking opportunities from other groups.
Oh, kei te pai. Really appreciate that. Because I do understand that there was some set aside for the Punaruku flooding, which was a separate pool of
Yes,
prettier
so
than that.
from the tranche one of the Better Off funding that
Yes.
paid for the business case
Ka pai.
development.
Yeah.
But because we didn't go for tranche two, obviously, due to certain reasons, that's why we're here. So
I appreciate
plead our
that,
case.
Mark. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your time. No other questions here. So thanks for taking time to come in. I'll let you guys go back and do your normal job again. Our next submitter is Paul Linton on behalf of. Oh no, I see Vaughan there as well. Is he going to be doing the submitting? Is he, or is he passing on to Paul? Okay. Their submission is from Northland Inc. and they're on volume 13, page 11. Paul, it is there. There's a lot of information there. Do you want to just highlight the stuff, or you've got a special little one, extra stuff to add?
I have a special comment.
Excellent. Okay.
Which will be done within 5 minutes. I was on. Colourblind, I can't tell. Sorry. Okay. Oh, look, thank you for receiving this comment and submission. We support WDC becoming a shareholder of Northland Inc. to strengthen the services and delivery of Northland Inc. support for businesses and organisations across the region. By WDC becoming a shareholder, we believe it will better enable Northland Inc to represent and advocate for the Northland region and provide a united voice on economic development and regional tourism issues and opportunities. We need all 4 councils of Northland having one aligned voice to central government. Northland Inc is considered a major channel for government support into Northland, and this has been clearly articulated by senior government officials and ministers very recently. So to properly do that, we need all 4 councils as formal shareholders. Whangarei is the largest council. It needs to be part of the team to be able to influence the strategic direction and where Northland Inc puts its resources to gain maximum impact for the North. NRC, KDC and FNDC are all shareholders. WDC is needed to complete the deck and also to show the other councils of Northland you are part of the Northland team. You can't have an EDA without the major player being a shareholder. It's like New York State without New York, or British Columbia without Vancouver. Northland Inc have been instrumental in supporting the delivery of key investment projects across the area, including the Hihioa Cultural Centre, the Niwa Kingfish Project, Oceania Marine Travel Lift, and we have our current support for Northport and the Dry Dock. Our work as a regional tourism organisation continues to bring visitors to the region. We are the ones that promote Northland internationally and domestically. And we've just run and are running a major campaign with TVNZ, radio, billboards and on social media to remind New Zealand that despite the Brynderwyns being repaired, we are very much open for business. And this was paid for by third parties through our advocacy and our credibility to deliver, not by ratepayers. We have supported many events across the North, again through advocating for third-party money, not ratepayers. And so we've helped fund events here in Whangarei to help make them possible, including the Fritter Festival, LAB Concert, Pacifica Fusion Festival, and we're also going to be supporting the Waitangi Marine Festival, next one coming up, just as examples. We're a very strong voice into government. We secured significant central government funds to the region, 8.6 million for Cyclone Gabriel support, and another 1 million for tourism promotion and resilience programs. A key program we run is early stage business case and feasibility work for projects in Northland. WDC shareholding and that additional funding would help us increase the pot available to do those early stage feasibilities on key projects, which are then used to find further funding and progress those key projects. They're the seed money that enables many projects in Northland to actually get up and going. And the larger the pot, the more impact we can have supporting projects. At the moment, we are limited. And with a voice at the shareholding table, you get a voice on strategic direction. If we are truly aligned, all 4 councils with business and the community for the North, then WDC needs to be a formal shareholder. This sends a real message that we are one team in the North. The investment you get back in multiples, and it will enable us to support more projects that will create jobs, provide revenues, and create opportunities and wealth for our citizens. Thank you. And one more comment on the CCTO. We support that too. We think it's a great mechanism that you can put existing projects and future projects into to manage and deliver. That's all.
I'm glad you added that because I was just going to ask that question because you hadn't included it within the submission. So thank you for adding that there. Is there any questions for Paul? No, just a sign of respect to say thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
Well done. Our next submitter is Gary Hopper from Hopper Developments on volume 18, page 93. Gray Hopper. Sorry, my apologies. I'm obviously I've been sitting in front of the screen for too long. My apologies.
I get that all my life, Your Worship. All right, dyslexia must run in amongst all New Zealanders somewhere along the line.
Yep.
Look, thank you for your time, Chair, Councillors. Good to see you, Mr. Hulse. Look, just obviously brief. We've just got a couple of items in our submission that we've put forward through to you. As an introduction, Hopper Developments is a New Zealand family-owned and operated company. We have a wide range of projects in residential, retirement living and marina associated activities, commercial and also retail. We do have developments currently in the Whangarei district, centred around Marsden Cove with our canal housing project. It's a joint venture project with Northport and Marsden Maritime Holdings, along with other waterways type developments located throughout New Zealand. The Marsden Cove development in particular offers a mix of residential development, both canal frontage and non-canal residential, public spaces, reserve beach areas, marine village, waterfront retail, supermarkets, eateries, medical centre and retirement village, etc. Our two key points, I guess, in our submission is basically around infrastructure strategy, particular wastewater capacity issues and water capacity issues. As detailed in the LTP supporting documents, Whangarei District's population is growing and is expected to continue to grow at around 1.3% per annum. And the One Tree Point area, Bream Bay area, is highlighted as a large growth area, with my understanding is some of the larger, more consented housing building consents to date in that area. Wastewater capacity in a district is a district-wide issue, obviously. Funding needs to be directed towards key infrastructure programs. And we, Hopper Developments, support the proposed infrastructure program that brings forward an upgrade and expansion to the Ruakaka wastewater treatment plant, for example. Into the 10 years of LTP. This investment obviously is critical for the high expected growth rates in the Ruakaka area, One Tree Point area, and identification of the Ruakaka wastewater treatment plant upgrade is a significant project and is estimated projected delivery in 24 to 2036. This gives effect, obviously, to national policy standards. It requires council to provide sufficient development capacity to meet demand on housing in the short, medium and long term. Obviously, One Tree Point and Bream Bay areas, there's large residential zoning areas to date, and Marsden Cove in particular, we have some 400 lots bringing on in our development alone over the next 10 years. And the surrounding developments are likely to bring in an additional 1,000 household units that are currently zoned for residential zoning. So, obviously, council is encouraged to enter into partnership agreements with developers and implement initiative mechanisms to ensure timely progression of bulk infrastructure delivery to signal growth areas. Obviously, water is an item as well that we're aware of. There's some capacity issues there, obviously not as constrained as wastewater. And with LPS now nationwide sample for low pressure systems for sewer particularly, there is the option there to really limit, control or function the existing capacity over set times. And I guess it's as a council's hindsight that they'd look into new technologies and new systems and programs to help aid in that into the existing infrastructure. One last item is just basically transportation of our area in particular with regards to Marsden Bay Drive. I'm not too sure if everyone's familiar with the current condition of that road, but similarly resealing and repairing of the road should be included in the transportation capital expenditure. Marsden Bay Drive provides direct link to State Highway 15 to One Tree Point Road and is currently in a degraded state with potholes, large areas of pooled water and temporary fixes that make it unfit for safe vehicle movement. Further, as the key road has no capacity to additional underground facilities, particularly from Railway Drive to Pappage Road, investment needs to be made to ensure the roading asset is fit for purpose. They're the two items that we've addressed in submission. Thank you.
Well done for keeping it short and sweet there, Gray. The question I have is, you haven't actually highlighted in there, and being a business, I thought you might have some comment over Northern Inc. being a shareholder of Northern Inc. and the council creating a CCTO. Have you got any comments over those two things? Just because, as I said, because you're a business, that's what I'm asking.
It is a business, because we are a business ourselves, and we probably didn't have time to consult with our partners there to bring them on top of that. It's mostly from our business point of view, and I'm sure I share sympathy from the existing businesses around the area of just at least making council aware of these items over the next sort of 10-15 LTP timeline. Just want to get our point across on that, I guess.
No, appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you again coming, Gray. Appreciate coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, our last submitter for today is James Griffin from the Para Bay Residents and Ratepayers, Volume 2, page 142. James, you've seen how things go and work in here. You've got 5 minutes, so yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, Your Worship and councillors. I represent members of residents and ratepayers. It's about 250 members in Para Bay. And we'd just like to very briefly highlight our key points that really reflect long-standing important issues to the community that have been reflected in things like the placemaking program. So really I've just touched very briefly on each of the issues. Transportation, keen interest in multimodal, safe, sustainable transport and riding infrastructure. Parks and recreation, our community certainly seek improved recreation and connectivity, better tracks in particular. Wastewater, we note that the LTP includes solutions to reduce the frequency of wastewater spills and to include treatment, and we wholly support that, and very keen for that to be done as soon as possible. That's spills both towards Pato Estuary and into Whangarei Harbour. We're looking forward to the final report for the placemaking, where we look forward to that reflecting the community vision and having a strategic document like that we see is very useful, and we really support that. And really the main point I'd like to really leave you with is requesting that the LTP include funding for public toilet. Most of the settlements out at Whangarei Heads have public toilets. Para Bay is the largest and has none. So that's really the key point. And thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any queries.
Thank you, James, for coming in. Now I have a question from, of course, your local ward councillor, Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, James, for coming in. So you stand between this baying mob and lunch. So we're gonna keep this going as long as we can with a few questions. So just in terms of the toilets, can I just confirm my understanding of this? So we've just commissioned new football pitches in Para Bay. First official use was in the last few days. We've got lots of kids playing up there, and I'm right in saying that there are no public toilet facilities for those new pitches.
That is correct.
Okay, that's a pretty poor position for us to be in. Thank you.
Remember, councillor,
I'm asking questions. I am. I'm getting on to my next question.
That's good because we haven't got anything to go on yet.
Oh,
go on. Anyway, focus.
I'd like to just ask your opinion about the speed limits as well, because we've had one or two comments about the speed limits today. So again, it's only a view, but I know you reflect the view of the ratepayers out there. So is it your opinion that the changes along the road there, particularly through the village, have improved the quality of life and safety? Do you feel generally they're working?
Dramatically. There was certainly a couple of months of pushback, and you saw some kind of aggressive behaviour, and there was certainly a period where there was some erratic driving, but in the last month or two, things really seem to have settled down, and it's noticeably safer. I cycle regularly to town, and I really notice it myself too. But I've noticed a lot of people talking about that.
Good. And the final question, Your Worship, if I may, is around the proposed skate park in Pyro Bay. And again, I'm just interested in your just an update, and for myself and the rest of the councillors, where that project currently sits. So what's your understanding of where we're currently at with that?
My understanding is that there's a resource consent application due for imminent lodgement. It's been due for imminent lodgement since before Christmas. I think there have been some consultation with a treaty partners that has perhaps taken more time than was originally envisaged. We certainly wholly support the thoroughness of that process, but we're also very concerned that delays are occurring, and we're really keen to move forward.
Okay, thank you, James. I did see Councillor Mackenzie's light on for 2 seconds. Did he have a question?
Oh, it was just in relation to the lack of toilets. Do you know if there's a logical location on council land where they might be located if there were to be an investment in that?
I think there are 2 logical locations, and I think it would make sense for there to be a process to really work out the best one. Certainly the football pitches would be the most pressing, and they're quite close to the Foursquare and the shops and things. But that would be actually on Ministry of Education land, most likely. There's a 25-year lease there. My understanding is that toilets can be modular, and after 25 years could potentially be picked up and moved somewhere else. But that would make a lot of sense in the immediately. But with the skate park and other sports activities happening at the other end of the village, it would also make a lot of sense to have toilets there, and that would be on. There is room on district council land there.
Thank you. That's great.
Well, thank you, James. Thank you for taking your time. Thank you for allowing the questions to be asked, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, as this is our last submitter, we now will close our session today. And since Councillor Luka has gone for the day, I will close us off. And I'll close off with a word of prayer. So if you'd like to bow your heads, you can. Heavenly Father, look after us today as we go our separate ways. Lord, look after those who are travelling distances and help them to travel safely to their destinations to be. And look after the rest of the councillors, wherever they may be, in your most precious and loving name. Amen.
Wherever they may be. Amen.